public meeting to order. The purpose of this public hearing is to receive public comment on the consideration of proposed text amendments to the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 9, Section 9.4, Table 9.9, and Section 9.5, Table 9.5.4.4. I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Poston.
Good evening, Commissioners. We've talked about this in several different sessions over the last couple months about us clarifying the table of uses in our Cullowhee and 441 corridor districts. And really what these text amendments do is to clarify that governmental public recreation facilities will be allowed in 441 district, in the rural living zoning district, and in the single family and the single family home manufactured home districts within the Cullowhee district. These amendments have gone before public hearings at the 441 Planning Council and the Cullowhee Planning Council. We had no speakers at the 441. We had about 3 or 4 speakers at the Cullowhee, all supportive of the changes. We've also had these amendments reviewed by the Planning Board. All 3 of those 2 councils on the board have recommended the changes to the Board of Commissioners and have passed consistency statements with our land use plans. And I can certainly answer any questions if the board has any.
Questions from the board? Do we have a public comment for tonight?
We had a couple people signed up, but I think they're speaking on general issues.
Okay, I think there's consensus to move this forward to our next meeting. So if there's no further comment or questions, is there a motion to close for our public hearing meeting?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor? None opposed. Meeting is adjourned. First up tonight, we have a few proclamations. First is the Purple Heart County. Whereas the Purple Heart is the oldest decoration in present use and was initially created as a badge of military merit by General George Washington in 1782. And whereas the Purple Heart was the first American Service Award or decoration made available to common soldiers and is specifically awarded to any member of the United States Armed Services wounded or killed in combat with the declared enemy of the United States. And whereas the mission of the Military Order of the Purple Heart, chartered by an act of Congress, is to foster an environment of goodwill among the combat wounded veteran members and their families, promote patriotism, support legislative initiatives, and most importantly, make sure we never forget. And whereas Jackson County residents have been engaged in most, if not all, of the wars against a declared enemy fought by the United States, and whereas Jackson County has numerous residents who have been awarded the Purple Heart Medal for wounds received in combat, and whereas Jackson County recognizes the commitment and increasing sacrifices required of military families, and whereas Jackson County pledges its ongoing commitment to and support for the men and women who so honorably serve our nation. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Jackson County Board of Commissioners hereby declares Jackson County as a Purple Heart County. Is there a motion to approve this proclamation? And a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Is there someone here tonight for the? Okay. Oh, Sheila. We have Sheila here from our Veteran Services.
Oh. Yeah.
Our next proclamation tonight is for Law Enforcement Officers Week and Peace Officers Memorial Day. Whereas Congress and the President of the United States have designated a National Peace Officers Memorial Day during Law Enforcement Officers Week, and whereas the members of law enforcement agencies of Jackson County play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedom of citizens of the county, and whereas members of law enforcement recognize their duty to serve the people of Jackson County by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression or intimidation. And whereas during Law Enforcement Officers Week and throughout the year, the County of Jackson recognizes and appreciates the critical contributions and sacrifices made by members of law enforcement at all levels and honors their courage and dedication. Now, therefore, the Jackson County Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim May 11th through 17th, 2025 as Law Enforcement Officers Week, and May 15th, 2025 as Peace Officers Memorial Day in Jackson County, and commend its observance to all citizens. Is there a motion to approve this proclamation?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. We have the sheriff with us tonight. I think CB did it last year. He was up here. Might have to do a panorama. We have one more proclamation tonight. It's honoring older Americans. Whereas Jackson County is home to an estimated 12,035 in the population 65 and older. 60 and older. And whereas the older adults in Jackson County are among millions helping to redefine aging in America. And whereas older adults are entitled to live healthier lives through a combination of independence and choice. And whereas older adults need the assistance of their communities to thrive, including the understanding and support from their friends and family. And whereas coordinated efforts to provide support on issues as diverse as housing, transportation, and healthcare can be vital to healthy aging and long-term living. Whereas the aging population is growing and offering more wisdom to succeeding generations. Now, therefore, the Jackson County Board of Commissioners proclaims the month of May as Older Americans Month. Is there a motion to approve this proclamation? And a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed.
I like the 65 number better.
65 does feel better.
Yeah.
It's like getting closer to 60.
You're getting closer, right?
Yeah.
Well, I already get to 60, so 65 sounded a whole lot better.
Moving on. Before us, we have an agenda. If there are no needs to make any amendments to this agenda, I'll seek a motion for approval.
So moved.
And a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Also, there are some minutes in front of us. If there are no needs to make any amendments to those minutes, I'll seek a motion for approval from our April 15th meeting.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Moving on now to administrative reports. For my report, I did reach out to Mr. Lewis about the gas station property on South River Road. And at this time, unfortunately, there's just not the asking price is too high. The investment already in the ground is substantial. So we could not reach an agreement on that, unfortunately. So, do any other commissioners have anything to report this evening? Turn it over to County Manager King for his report.
So I did want to bring you up to speed on a couple projects. One, we've kind of been stalled on the Cashers Glenville Recreation Area project, talking about the pool. We have come up with a possible solution, splitting these projects up and making one at the rec center with the pool implement, and then going ahead and rebidding out the current project on the ground. So that's kind of the route that we would be wanting to take. We did meet with the architect of the building, and he's already got some plans in the works. So I think it'll be a lot better solution than to try to add it to the current one that we've got.
And who is the architect?
Dan Duncombe
Dan who? Where's
was
he
the
from?
original architect. He lives in Cashers. So
He's the original one that drew the pool and
the plan, yeah,
so the new plan is to include a pool?
correct, yeah.
But it would also be part of another expansion on the facility as well, wouldn't it?
It would include a new weight room, and then you'll have an outdoor pool, but you'll get to it through the facility. So actually,
Outdoor pool.
it'll be an outdoor pool, yeah. So, but we can discuss that as the drawings get more solidified. So,
Is that what the people up there wanted, was outdoor pool? Or they want something they can swim in the winter too?
I think the best use would be winter as well.
I mean, absolutely, that's what they'd want, but if nothing else, it needs to be built where that could be.
Could be added on?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like we had discussed in the prior meeting, we could also mimic the one like they have in Highlands,
With retractable.
where you
roof
can
or
open it
whatever.
up, yeah.
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 So there are options, but I was just we did meet with them with Michael and getting a plan ready, and so we'll bringing it back to you. But we do want to go ahead and try to rebid out the other project. The other project has a significant wetlands in it, and it wouldn't be really conducive to putting a small pool. And then if you wanted indoor, it would be hard to staff it. So this way, if it's part of the facility, it'd be a lot easier to staff it.
Nobody's expecting what you've got in Cullowhee up there, but, something's what we're looking for.
We are working on it.
But they do expect it to not leak.
Yeah. The Department on Aging project, which is also on the agenda for tonight for approval, and I'll get to that in a few minutes. The other project I just wanted to mention is the Center for Domestic Peace, which is going a lot faster right now than it has been. So we're hopeful that it's going to meet the deadline in July, which is still past where we anticipated, which was at the end of May. So, but they have gotten a lot of movement going. So we are staying on them daily.
Are they staying on budget and everything?
Yeah, the budget's fine. It's just the time period. So, the Jackson County Fairgrounds project, just did want to mention this. Did go down and meet with EBCI today and talk about the relationship that partnership that we're going to be doing with a water expansion there. So they're very, they're both of us coming to the table. So we'll be bringing back some agreements and trying to get some stuff going with that. But that'll be the main component for that project. So we're hopeful that that'll come to fruition. And then the other one I want to mention is the middle school project. We did meet on site today to look at the property, and are in the process of working with NCDOT for a traffic study. We're trying to coincide it with Ingalls, but that's not going to be feasible. We have to go through another route, so I'll be bringing more of that when we get more details. So, and that's all I have at this
So
point.
we're not gonna be able to have like a road frontage with them?
We will. It's just they're not going to allow us to use the same traffic engineer as a commercial environment. You have to go through WSTA, which is a separate engineering group that DOT contracts with. So we just have to go a different route. They'll probably be combining And the idea was a frontage road or a service road. So we're still on that concept. It's just trying to get both of them to work together.
A little bit
So-
more in
So
stacking.
DOT is different for a school and for
It
commercial?
is, the methodology is different and the way that we have to handle it. We were actually
Do we have to
paying
wind
for,
up on the same roads?
it'll be the same road and we'll be paying for it up front and get reimbursed from DOT. But by state statute, the DOT has to reimburse us. So that's why we go to a different route.
With stacking cars and buses and just getting all that traffic in and out. So,
Like I said, you wind up on the same road anyway.
Yep.
That's
You-
kind
you
of like
will.
telling people you gotta use a different toilet, but it all winds up in the same place.
Anyway, that's all I have for now.
What about the Whittier Park?
Let's see.
Think
We're-
about that? I missed that.
No, I didn't say anything about it. We're about 20% of the expenses, but they've gotten a lot of the walkways done. They're doing a great job.
What's the time frame on that?
I think they've got till December, but we're looking more like fall. So because they're going pretty fast, so we're hopeful that'll be fall.
My community will love it.
Yep. Any other questions?
On the fairgrounds, feel pretty good about a deal with the EBCI?
Yeah. Yeah.
On water?
We helped them put in a ARC grant for $700,000 to help us get some of the funding for it, and so that application is due the end of May. They were awarded the pre-app or got approval to do the pre-app, so now they've got till the end of the month to get that ready.
This is gonna save us some money. We won't have to.
It will.
Hour.
Yeah, if we do it self-contained, basically wouldn't help really the community any. It would just help that facility, and so this way it could help that whole community with water accessibility, working with a provider, so, and spend about the same amount of money either way. So,
Thank you.
do you have anybody?
sorry.
We'll start with Cornelia Waldram. Miss Waldram?
Hi, good evening. My name is Cornelia Waldram. I'm a resident of Silva. Been before you guys a few other times. And I wanted to come before you tonight. A lot of other people over the last few years have stood here at this podium and spoken with great passion and great eloquence, both for and against the statue that sits on the steps above the fountain. They've spoken about what it stands for. And I'm not here to add words to that. They've done a beautiful job. And in reality, my opinion on the statue is irrelevant. My concern is that the recent actions by this commission demonstrate a lack of transparency, a lack of recognition of constituent interests. It has become, unfortunately, common practice for disengagement from constituents by our political representatives at the state and the federal level. But I am dismayed to experience that same thing here. This body's backdoor maneuver to eliminate the hard work of previous board to find compromise regarding the statue on the fountain steps is deeply concerning to me as your constituent and as your neighbor. This was one of the most difficult conversations and decision-making processes this community has experienced in recent history. There were numerous meetings. You all know this. You have access to all of them. Numerous meetings, hard conversations and contemplations, and various scenarios discussed. After much anguish and careful contemplation, a compromise was eventually reached was painful. No one got what they wanted, but that is the typical way a compromise lands. But those wounds were healing until you reopened them without cause that we are aware of. Again, no transparency. With no cause, not as though it's in response to some new divisive conversation that's been happening, but just on apparent personal whim. Again, I will see each of you. I'm going to see you at the grocery store. I will see you at the bowling alley. I'll see you at El Patron. I'm going to see you on the trail in Panthertown and Cullowhee Falls. I'm going to see you at the Christmas tree lots. I'm going to see you on the golf course. I'm going to see you at the transfer station. You matter to me. I am your neighbor, and you are mine. You are my community. I expect us to be able to stand beside one another during celebrations, during the Christmas parade, the Halloween whatever, up and down Main Street, the WC parades. I expect to be able to stand alongside you in celebration. And I expect us to be able to lean on one another in emergencies like floods and fires. And for heaven's sakes, everything that's happening on 107, we've got to be able to rely on one another and lean on one another. But this creates tremendous rift. I cannot rely on you. I cannot rely on you when you refuse to value me, when you refuse to come and speak to the very people who worked so hard across this county to come to a conclusion, and you just took it upon yourselves to eliminate it. I highly question the legality, and I am not the only one. My hope is that you will return to that. You will come back together. You can make amends. Everybody loves an apology. Everybody screws up. But you are capable of coming back and saying, you know what? We just weren't thinking. We just didn't think it'd be that big a deal. Whatever you want to say, come back to the table. Come back to your neighbors. Come back to your community and have a conversation. There's a lot that is unknown. That's $14,000 worth of plaques, and who knows where they are? Are they melted down? Are they going to be, put into streetlights? There is information here that needs to be shared, and I am deeply saddened because I expect more from my neighbors. I give more, and I want more back. We cannot stand alongside one another if we cannot feel valued and if I can't trust you. We are not going to agree, and that's fine. But I need to be able to be part of the process. Thank you.
Next up, we have Miss Hanley, Jessie Hanley. Three people, so I don't see what's going a little longer for her.
Thank you. I am here this evening also to speak against the decision to restore the Confederate monument that defiles the steps of our courthouse turned library. Citizens deserve a voice in the democratic process, especially in decisions that revive symbols of hate and white supremacy. The resurgence of bigotry in our public spaces is a threat to Silva's identity. It risks alienating progressive residents, deterring the tourists who help support our local economy, and undermining the businesses that sustain it. This issue is not solely about the monument, as has already been pointed out. This is about how the decision was made, without notice, without a public vote, without any opportunity for community input. This disregard for public engagement mirrors the unchecked authority of our federal executive branch. When leaders fail to listen to those they serve, they foster a sense of urgency that will manifest at the polls, where citizens of Jackson County will hold the County Board of Commissioners accountable. But it is not too late. we can still restore trust between citizens and elected officials if the commissioners recognize that leadership requires listening. If the community genuinely wants to revert to the era in which this statue, cast in Ohio during Jim Crow, was created, so be it. But if the people prefer the compromise reached here in 2021, that too must be respected. Don't let democracy die in the darkness of unilateral decision making. Let it live in the light of public discourse and community consent. Thank you so much for your time.
Travis Russell. Travis Russell.
Thanks for taking the time to hear me. I was wanting to come represent Cashers. It sounds like you guys already have something going on with a hopeful swimming pool in Cashers. And I don't know what the plans are, and I don't know if I have all my facts straight. But speaking on, I mean, I'm born and raised in Cashers, been there my whole life, and I can speak for the people when I say we really want a swimming pool, and a good swimming pool. I heard you guys talking about an indoor swimming pool that could retract and open, and hey, that'd be great. I mean, you got my vote, but just a swimming pool would be great. I've heard you guys were talking about putting in a splash pad. Hey, a splash pad would be great for some kids that are 10 and under. But I mean, at 43 years old, I still like to jump off the diving board too. And and hopefully you guys can find a way to make that work. I was hoping there was going to be more people from Cashers tonight to speak on that because, they all complain about not having one, but, one of us showed up. And I'm sorry for that. But I am speaking for the entire community when I'm like, please give us a swimming pool. I heard that you guys were talking about putting in a basketball court and a pickleball court. We have a basketball court. We have tennis courts. We have a playground. I mean, some things could be maintained a lot better. There's some things that need to be maintained better. There's some things that might need to be updated. But what we don't have is a swimming pool. And right now everybody's having to drive down to Silva or go up to Highlands. Either way, but. And one fact that, and I think we all know, and I'm not trying to insult anybody when I say this, but the majority of the money comes from up there on that mountain. And I'm happy for who gets to use it wherever, but I'd love to see some of it used in our little town for swimming pool. We have those tennis courts out there by the old swimming pool. There's a basketball goal on each end. I mean, that could be cleaned up and fixed up and made nice right there. We have indoor basketball goals in the community center. But the main reason I'm here is to discuss the swimming pool. It sounds like you guys have been talking about that, and that's awesome. Thank you very much. But that's it. That's all I've got. Please give us a swimming pool, a nice swimming pool.
And I said the same thing. Cashers pays their share of taxes. They want a pool, they can get a pool.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Okay.
That's it. Thanks.
Moving on now to new business, Sheriff's Office transfer service pistol, Sheriff's Office transfer of service pistol to retirees, and Mr. Farmer.
Y'all should resign.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to do this. This comes as a request from the sheriff's office. Whenever we have a retiree that retires, we'd like to transfer their service weapons to them. And it's been customary for several years now. But this is the request, just formally asking for the ownership of these service handguns to be transferred to Sergeant Johnny Hollifield, and that's a Glock Model 45 9mm handgun. Serial number is attached there. The statute empowers the board to facilitate the transaction at a cost determined by the board, which has been historically established as $1 to be paid in cash at the time of approval. And I respectfully request your careful consideration of this matter and approval for the transfer of the services handgun to Sergeant Johnny Hollifield and Lieutenant Raleigh James.
Motion to approve the transfer of service.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed?
And I've got
Got $1. Thank them both for their service. Yeah. Darlene, we got extra.
Lieutenant Raleigh James and Sergeant Johnny Hollifield.
That extra dollar in this question.
Yeah.
We're losing 52 years total of experience between these two officers. But the good thing is they've imparted that knowledge amongst several other officers, so we're appreciative of that.
Moving on now to budget ordinance amendments and Ms. Fox.
Good afternoon. The first budget amendment we have is an increase of $1,609,197. It's various revenues. This also includes a FEMA disaster assistance reimbursement amount, a grant from the state for emergency management, additional ad valorem tax, building inspection fees, fire inspection fees, the West Care profit from the ambulance service from the prior year, additional reimbursement from Town of Silva for the pool, and additional recreation fees for Chloe cashiers and personal trainer and cashiers, and an additional state grant of $21,000. The next one is it's also general fund. It's investment earnings of $50,000 to be designated for future appropriation. The opioid fund, this is for addition of $478,267. We have $25,000 investment earnings, the opioid settlement amount for this year, and various pharmacy settlements. The self-insurance fund is an increase of $275,000. We have $75,000 from investment earnings and $200,000 from rebates. The emergency telephone fund, investment earnings of $30,000 to be into contracted services. Have a grant in economic development fund from Southwestern NC Planning and Economic Development for $75,000 for digital inclusion. And then the school improvement fund increased $573,575. That's from the right of way from Department of Transportation for Smoky Mountain High project. I'd be glad to answer any questions on the amendments.
Questions from the board?
So the Department of Transportation, where you said for the high school project, is that for the road? What do you
It's
mean?
for the road right of way.
Okay. Okay.
and we have received it.
Questions by the board? We'll go on to solid waste leases.
You want to go ahead and vote on these?
You want to go ahead and vote on these amendments? Is there a motion to approve all of these budget amendments? I believe there's 7.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. All right. Now we'll move on to
Solid waste leases, okay. Have 2 leases for the solid waste department. A 2024 Volvo excavator, it's a crawler excavator. The lease bank is Kansas State Bank. The monthly lease amount's $2,068.46. And the 2024 Ottawa, it's a terminal tractor yard truck. And it's with Wells Fargo Bank at $2,044.06 per month. And the money is available in the solid waste fund.
both of these leases at 61 months, or 60 months with it.
They are. And they will pick up the equipment they have there now.
That will be at the transfer facility.
Yes.
This is the equipment we have up there now that's broken?
Well, it's at the end of the lease, the original lease, and we're turning it back in and getting new equipment.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve this lease?
I make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Thank you, Ms. Fox.
Thank you.
Moving on now to the aging recommendation letter from Mr. King.
So this has been a long time coming. We have finally gotten 2 qualified bidders, Rise Construction and Haynes Industrial, MB Haynes. Rise Construction was the lowest bid, and they were the certified amount of $505,675. And you see the second one at $623,644. So on recommendation of Cope Architecture, who did our bid tally, they are recommending Rise Construction to do the project at the Department of Aging, and that'll be starting in June. So just need a motion.
Any questions by the board?
Seems like there's a large disparity in the number of days they each said it would take them, so.
Yeah, quite a bit.
That's concerning.
Yeah.
That part is.
Is there a penalty if not completed in 105 days?
Yeah, all of that's part of the contract, but they seem to be pretty on top of it. We did talk to them at the bid opening. So,
How much did we think this was going to cost? Was it 5?
we really didn't know. There was so much structural part of it. That's why we brought in the engineers, and that's why it's costing a little bit more. And we met that threshold. The threshold is 500,000. So, we were kind of on the pin there. So that's why we decided to bid out, and it worked out to our benefit. I think that we got a qualified bidder, and especially I think with the way that we're going to have to go about with rehabilitating the building, it's going to have to be in stages to where we can keep the facility open.
And remind everybody what exactly the repairs is going to be on.
Yeah, so
That's a fairly, when was that building built?
2014.
That's what I thought.
Fairly new.
Yeah.
there was there's some issues with the actual lumber that was utilized. It wasn't how to say? I guess it wasn't spec'd out correctly. It should have been, weather treated, and it was not. And some of the flashing was done incorrectly. And so when the initial contract was done, so we're just having to fix it. Basically, the integrity of the building is compromised in the front.
Yeah.
And so
This is going to fix it, but it should fix.
this should fix the problem. Yeah, it'll be flashed correctly, and we went through. That's why we had to get involved with the structural engineering folks. So
Basically, we're fixing $500,000 worth of water damage.
yeah, it was water damage. It just rotted at the base, and there was just no way to go back in and fix it without significant improvement.
Who built the building? Do you remember, Darlene?
I don't remember either.
There's, it,
Better not.
No,
it
that wasn't Rise.
don't seem like they was both bidding the same thing or something to have that amount of money difference and the amount of days for completion different.
It probably was, Haynes has a lot of different projects going on, so they probably were like, well, we'll do it, but it may take longer.
So if Rise got the contract, does that mean they can come in later and it's gonna end up being
No,
800,000?
no, the contract is what it is. What they bid on is what, and that was the initial estimate that the
So no
architect gave. So,
supplementals.
yeah, I think it was just they did a courtesy bid. MB Haynes probably did a courtesy bid for us.
Change orders or supplements.
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Moving on now to Ms. Tucker and Ms. Long and the JCPC certification and funding plan.
Good evening, Commissioners, Chairman. I'm here to discuss the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council funding plan for this year. We get $128,439 from the state, and we just need your local match of $54,000 for approval. And if you have any questions or want to know anything about, I do have the executive director of Hawthorne Heights to go over one of our programs and what they do and how they contribute to the community.
Are there any questions by the board for the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council?
Where do these people operate out of?
So Heights, one of our programs is here in this building, and Hawthorne Heights is in Bryson City.
Any additional questions? If not, I'll seek a motion for approval of the fund allocation.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
None opposed?
All right, now we're going to have Kara who's going to talk about Hawthorne Heights and give you a little bit of information about that program.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for your time. My name is Kara Long. I'm the Executive Director for Hawthorne Heights WNC. So we're included in this funding plan. I did want to give you a little bit more information about our program and how that is beneficial to Jackson County. We are located in Bryson City. We have a group home that offers emergency shelter for Western North Carolina youth in need. But actually our roots, Hawthorne's roots, are in Jackson County. We were founded in 1976 and had, the original home was in Dillsboro. So Jackson County played a big part of us coming into existence and being able to do the things that we do today. Our mission, first and foremost, is to provide safe, temporary shelter care for youth in crisis. We want to be a nurturing and structured environment where healing and growth can begin for these children. Other than basic needs, we provide case planning, behavior management, family support. We work with the parents or the guardians to assist them with developing structure necessary for youth to be successful after they discharge, if the plan is for them to return into the home. We help the parent, the guardian, the youth, any supports around them, whether that be their therapist, their social worker, their juvenile court counselor, come up with some goals for them to work on while they're in our program, and then we try to assist them with developing coping skills and independent living skills. So just trying to give them as many tools as we can while they're in our care for them to be successful later on. We mainly serve youth who need short-term care, respite, crisis intervention, behavior stabilization, and then we work with the supports in that child's life to determine next steps for them after they leave our care.
So how do these kids get to you? Are these kids that are on drugs, or how do they get in this program?
Largely, our referral sources come from juvenile court, which is why we're a JCPC funded program. It could be different reasons that they come into our care. It could be they are engaging in substance use. It could be they are undisciplined. They're refusing to go to school. They're sneaking out of the home at night. And sometimes, in a lot of cases, it's not a behavior issue with the child. It is a safety issue in the home and abuse and neglect going on in the home. Yes.
Thank you.
In the past year, we've served 6 youth from Jackson County, and amongst those 6 youth, we provided a total of 416 days of care. And there was a particular Jackson County youth who stayed in our program a total of 211 days because we had a very difficult time finding an appropriate place for him to go after Hawthorne. So we will work with them as long as we can to set them up for success and get them to a stable home after us. So the county match that you provide, that is a big support for us to make sure that we sustain that high quality care for the children. And that's $82.56 a day. The ages range from 12 to 17, so middle school, high school age. Yeah. And so we're deeply grateful for your support. I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have.
You have any fundraisers coming up?
We actually just had a fundraiser last Saturday. We don't have another one scheduled, but we did have a fundraiser over in Whittier. We had a golf tournament that was pretty successful. So we try to hold a couple fundraisers every year.
So the shelter, you said that's in Bryson City?
It is in Bryson
When
City.
someone comes from Jackson County, you take them to Bryson City?
Mm-hmm. We do. Yeah. And I will say too, I think it's important to note we are the only program of this kind west of Asheville. So any children within this region, the 7 western counties, we're trying to keep them as close to their communities as we can, but
Could you use a shelter in Jackson County?
we could. We absolutely could. The need is there. We receive about 250 referrals per year for our services, and we just have 9 beds in our facility. So
Turn down a whole lot.
we do. The demand is very high for placements for kids. Yeah.
And y'all go through the whole process of helping find a new home and
We do.
find foster parents.
Mm-hmm. We do.
What are we doing with that new building out at, or not new building, but the one we purchased out in Webster?
It's with
No.
the one that we purchased, the 5 acres.
Yeah.
That's with Chris Weatherford.
Yeah, they're using it.
DSS.
Are they using that?
Yeah.
I don't think it's daily. No.
They're not?
The construction has been done on the bathrooms completely.
But they are gonna use it?
They are going to use it.
I thought they already were.
They're not.
I think we were in the process of finding the foster family that was gonna.
Okay.
Yeah. Have to check with Chris. That is.
Well, if they're not using it, that'd be a good location.
Yeah.
We would love the opportunity to expand because we've been doing this a long time, and our staff are very seasoned. We run a really high quality program. So
How many square foot? Do you remember how many square foot that place is?
I think it was certified at what? 9 children? 8 to 9.
I think the conflict would come in with if we had to put DSS children there and these troubled kids, there might be some conflict there. You have a better answer to that.
well, I think if we were to explore the possibility of providing services at that location here, likely we would just look at taking referrals from DSS specifically. I think that's in my discussions with Mr. Weatherford that the need is really high as far as their own children in care sleeping in the offices.
That's the
But
reason we originally purchased it. Plus it had the additional land that we could build other facilities there if needed. So.
yeah, we would certainly, whatever the county would want for those services in that building, we would certainly listen to that. Yeah.
Well, these kids, these children, 12 to 17, they need a place to go. And there's many of them living out of a suitcase, going home to home. We really need to, as commissioners, we really need to sit down and think about that and provide some type of a shelter for them. So if we can reach out to Chris, see what they're gonna do with it, see if they're gonna follow through with it. If not, I would say we can just lease it to you guys or something and let y'all use it.
Okay. Well, I look forward to further discussions about that.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Now to our legislative portion. First up is Ms. Tucker, and offer to purchase and contract for 843 Allen Street and Resolution R2510.
Yes, it's me again. So we have a bid for that property for $78.50. He has already put in the deposit. This property is right behind the paper mill there, Tripper Cove Road and Allen Street. And it is only 0.14 acres, so it's teeny tiny. And he's gonna give us $78.50.
Is that the one that has the old trailer that's, it's not that one?
One across the road.
Across the street, yeah. So I think it's a good idea.
So there's no building on it, it's just property?
It's just a piece of property.
Across the railroad tracks. Oh,
Yeah, it's like right at the Allen Street and Chipper Curve.
yeah. Yeah, that is small.
Yeah, it's tiny. So just need to know if you would like to approve that bid, and then it'll go into a 10-day upset bid process.
This is always a good thing because we get it back on the tax roll. So,
Approve it, we get more tax.
is there a motion to approve the sale of this property?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
None opposed.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Moving on now to my favorite man, Michael Poston, and a Unified Development Ordinance update. Or the text amendment. I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead to our work session.
That's okay. That's okay.
You on all three agendas?
Everyone I can get on. Anyone that'll let me on. So again, we've kind of gone through this several occasions about what we're doing, the amendments we're making to the use tables for both the Cullowhee and 441 district. I'll certainly answer any questions there. The only other thing that that the board would have to consider as they're considering whether to approve the amendments is also whether or not those amendments would be consistent with all of our land use plans that have been adopted over the years. And there's three that we believe these amendments would be consistent with our comprehensive land use plan, H3, Objective 3, to support the expansion of the Cullowhee Greenway to connect the campus to the community. Transportation 2, Objective 1, expand sidewalks, bike lanes, and greenways to housing and community centers and connect those. In the also in the land use plan, R2, Recreation 2, Objective 1, develop pocket parks near Savannah, Whittier, and Little Canada and Balsam. And the Cullowhee Small Area Plan to extend the Tuckasegee Greenway, and the US 441 Small Area Plan encased in their action plans for strategies for land conservation and action items. As the request of the planning department and staff would be that the board consider approving the text amendments and the consistency statement before each of them.
Any questions for Mr. Poston? If not, I'll seek a motion for approval for the text amendments. And what was the other?
The consistency statement.
Consistency statement with the three planning councils.
Yep.
Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
And a second? Second. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Jennings,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Bryson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hooper,
Yes.
Chairman Letson.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Poston. And then our last legislative resolution, R25-11, and the conveyance of public property to Wolf Creek Baptist Church.
So this resolution basically gives the property to up in the Wolf Creek Baptist Church, which is currently their fellowship hall, and under lease currently. This resolution, I would go ahead and give that property to the Wolf Creek Baptist Church and for their use and for their ownership. So, and this basically what this resolution does.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Hooper? Commissioner Bryson?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Jennings?
Yes.
Chairman Letson?
Yes. Is there, no press tonight, so, with no need to go into closed session, is there a motion to adjourn our, regularly scheduled meeting?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. We are adjourned. No, no. Up our work session for May 6th. First up tonight is Dr. Ayers, Superintendent of Schools. Thank you, Dr. Ayers.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are y'all?
Doing well.
So, first of all, I want to thank you. I wasn't able to attend the last board meeting because it was spring break and I may or may not have been in Florida. But the purchase of the land for our middle school, we're extremely grateful for. And we had the chance, Jake and I, and the architect and Kevin, to walk it a little bit today. So we hope we're not covered in poison ivy, sumac, all of those things, but you guys picked an ideal spot. So thank you. I come to you this evening with our annual budget request, and so to prepare you well in advance, I sent you a one-pager and some information so that you would have opportunity to review that. There we go. So first of all, it's just a review of, as you've already seen them, but a restatement of our goals. And so these are things that we've been either successfully already doing, and we need your support to continue for future, the next year, or new things that we are adding to our budget request. And the first is the continued for the no-cost lunches, and it's really no-cost breakfast and lunch. I have to commend you as a county commission board that you did this for students. This is not happening across the state of North Carolina. And so all students in Jackson County Public Schools and the Catamount School receive no-cost breakfast and lunches every single day. So you are the anomaly in our state, and that is definitely something to be commended. However, you'll see in my ask in just a little while that the number has increased because if you bought any groceries lately or anything else, you will see that the cost is steadily rising for grocery items. The next item is our maximum of 4% increase for all staff. This is based on whatever the state decides. Since we don't have their budget yet, we don't know what that will look like. So we've heard 1.5% up to 4% until they solidify their budget and pass it. That's why we worded it as a maximum of 4%. The next item is to continue supporting our student support positions that's funded through you all, and those are our counseling positions and other that you have done in past years. So that has not changed one bit. The next item, the next bullet, is the HVAC and fire alarm system for Jackson Community School. I think you're well aware that we had conversation about relocating our Jackson Community School, which is our alternative setting. We had that conversation for several months at the request of my board. And at the conclusion, my board made a decision to maintain the campus on that site. That site is an old site, as you're well aware of, and it needs a lot of work. Currently, it needs about $450,000 worth of HVAC systems for both heating and air. They are, for lack of a better word, limping along. It is band-aided together. And then the other portion of that $500,000 ask is an upgrade to the fire alarm system. So it is functioning, but it is very, very old and doesn't communicate well with all of our other systems. So it is functioning. I want to reassure folks that it is working. It's just a very old system. And then the last piece of that is an increase to our local supplements. As you all are probably aware, and many other positions, us in the far west, school districts in the far west don't do a good job of offering supplements to our certified and non-certified employees. This is one way that we can retain staff over long term. I will tell you that just 4 years ago, our non-certified people, those are our bus drivers and school nutrition and custodians. The year that I arrived here, they got nothing in an annual supplement. And so we have steadily increased that with a one-time supplement of $200, then $500, and then the last 2 years, $600, and we want to raise that to $1,500. Our current certified staff receive $2,000, and so those are flat rate supplements that we are able to offer. Our neighboring counties, specifically 2 of them, are not offering anything. So we do see that as an advantage, and our team has talked recently over the last several weeks, we are getting more and more interest from our neighboring counties of staff that want to come and work here. And I think that's a testimony to what you all as a county commission and what we all do to honor our employees.
So what exactly, I understand what non-certified is, what exactly is certified?
So certified positions are anything from a counselor, a teacher, an assistant principal, a social worker, a media coordinator, all of those positions that require a certified license. Do you have any questions about?
Have you looked at, I was under the assumption that Macon was given like 4%.
So in
Pennsylvania was like 7%.
Transylvania has a pretty good supplement. If you look at Haywood toward Buncombe County, they do a very fine job, to be honest, of providing supplements. Swain, not so, and I'm not devaluing them. I just am honoring what you all give. Macon offers a supplement, a very small supplement. Ours exceeds that. But Transylvania does have a really strong supplement, as well as Henderson County, which is significantly larger than us. As far as I'm aware, I do not think Clay offers anything. So just thinking of our neighbors in our far west counties. On the next slide, you will see a program that I am enormously proud of. And we were able to get the JROTC program that started in January. Commissioner Smith was able to come out and see them in action, and you all saw them in action as they presented colors at the meeting at the Boston Fire Department. Our program, we had our award ceremony last week, and there are 29 active participants in it. Right now, that's pretty amazing for 4 months that has happened. Our numbers as of this morning for the fall of the upcoming school year, we have 60 students already enrolled, and we have 14 who have chosen that as their second elective. So we have the potential of having 74 students in the fall. That is incredible. I don't know if you remember that when I told you about this program 2 or 3 years ago, the requirement is to have 10% of the total population. Smoky Mountain High School is sitting about 900 students right now. So when we reach that threshold of 90, we have to have it by the end of 3 full years, and we're going to far exceed that. So we're excited. Students at Jackson County Early College are also eligible to participate. We didn't have anyone in the spring semester. I think that was probably a difficult problem because we started mid-semester and they were already signed up for their SEC classes. I know we have a handful of JCEC students who are intending to come for the fall. Really excited about that. So you'll see what it looks like as far as the funding for that. On the establishing cost side, which is the left column, we didn't come to you asking for that money. We went ahead and covered that with our funds. And so it cost the district for this semester about $75,000. The Army, we have an agreement with the Army, and it's called MIPS. And off the top of my head, and I can't remember what that stands for, but that reimburses us half the salary of the 2 instructors. But it's only half the salary, not the benefits and all those other expenses. That is something that doesn't follow the school fiscal calendar, so their salary will change next January. We just don't know what that will look like. So you will see the cost for that. The current salary for both of our instructors is $14,826 per month, and the Army gives us $75.89 and some change. So they do reimburse us for half of that. I would invite you all, anybody that's interested in coming to see them in action. We've had a Raider team and a Guard team, a rifle team, and they've been very successful. And these last 2 weeks, I believe, they've already brought home 2 trophies. Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing for a fledgling program is what I call it. So we would definitely need funds to continue the process of that as a recurring program that's going to continue to grow. The next slide is our ask, a little more detail about each of these items. So a repeat of our locally paid employees as the salary increases occur at the state level. Anybody that is paid locally We do not get the funds for that. So you've heard me ask for that for many years, that those folks who are on our local budget, we would ask that you support whatever that state budget is for that. Historically, when we've asked for the increase in funding, it's just been to really support some of that unmandated parts, like in 2021 when they moved the minimum non-certified, so that's all our school bus drivers, custodians, when they said, okay, you have to give them a minimum of $13 an hour, which they should make much more. They only gave us a pot of money to cover those that were at our state budget. So anybody that was local, we picked up that. It then increased the following year to a minimum of $15 an hour. And again, we did not come to you asking for you to fund that difference in the folks who were not state funded. Does that make sense? Kind of talks in a circle. Last year, you all increased our budget 2%. And then the state said, okay, everybody gets a 3% raise. So we did not come back in and ask for that. And we're able to use and allocate some of our fund balance for that. We cannot continue in that path of using our fund balance because we will exhaust all of our fund balance. And I do hope that the state gives our folks 4%. They all deserve it. We implemented a salary study. You've heard me reference that before back in 2022. So if you look at our minimum wage for non-certified staff, we are doing a really fine job of trying to honor those years of service. Our neighboring counties and many counties across the state don't do that. They do simply what the state requires. And if you remember me getting in the weeds about that last year, it's a disservice to our employees who may have worked for us for 20 years and received the same $15 an hour that an employee who just got hired yesterday. And so our salary decompression allowed some room in there to pay people who have given their time and service over a long period of time, a different salary scale. And then the benefit rate changes. Last year, we were fortunate that it dipped slightly, but it is projected to increase over 1% this year, and that's happening for all of the state employees, so that's not anything new. Again, we are asking for you to provide funds for those employees that exceed the state employees and the state allotments. We are asking for any state bonuses for locally paid staff. So when the state hands out something, if they hand out anything, there's talk of them handing out some for the state-funded positions. We would ask you to support that again. Providing, as I said, increases for our supplement, funding the JROTC program, and continuing the no-cost meals. So those are a large ask.
No-cost meals. Have you seen more students taking meals?
Absolutely. I'm going to turn and look at Laura Cape, who is our school nutrition director. So about what percent have we increased in those folks who are eating?
Overall, breakfast and lunch, a little over 5%.
About 5% increase.
An increase of 5%.
We already had a pretty high participation rate before, but implementing that has definitely helped. And then breakfast as well.
And these students are eating, they're just not getting food, just throwing it away, they're eating it.
They're eating it, yes.
Or they're giving it to their pals who would like a second meal. I would say that's definitely occurring.
I'm just hungry.
Well, that's what I think. If somebody's going to eat it, let's make sure we give it to them.
Maybe the other meal they get.
It may be the only meal they get, but they get 2 at school, so that's a grand thing. The next slide is just a budget at our budget at a glance, because I remind everybody that there's 2 parts of our budget. There's the operating budget and then the capital budget, which are those expenses typically not related to salaries. So our operating budget are those things that we need people, number one, in front of us, and we need supplies and materials, transportation, utilities, those types of things that we can't do without, nor could we do without our capital budget, which is preventative maintenance, our upgrades, our one-to-one device initiative. We have been a one-to-one district longer than I have been here, and thankfully thankfully, we were a one-to-one district prior to COVID, and that was really, really helpful for us to already have that. So you all have been gracious in supplying us opportunities to renew as devices age out over time. And then security, you do pay for 4 of our SROs. We're so very grateful for that. We are fortunate again, and unlike many of our neighbors, we do have an SRO in every one of our schools, and we're so grateful for that. A little glimpse of our enrollment, and we've talked at length about this with you all, and I always want to be transparent with you about that. Our enrollment has declined slightly over the last couple of years. We talked about what it looked like during COVID, and that was a trend that we saw not just statewide but nationwide. But we are looking to be a little bit down for the upcoming year. In 2024, at the conclusion of the year, we were at an ADM, an average daily membership of 3473. And then we are projecting for the upcoming year to be at 3338. So over a 3-year, 2 years firm, and then our projection will be down about 80 kids compared to the current year we sit in right now.
Do you think the enrollment is going down or was down due to what was being taught in the schools?
I don't know the answer to that. I do think that with the Parents' Bill of Rights and there being more, again, transparency where people have the opportunity to really come in and view, for me, I think that's helpful to us for people to be able to come in and see. I don't feel like we have anything to hide. I do think the decrease, and that's a great question, the decrease in our enrollment is attributed to homeschoolers, charter schools, and private schools.
Right. Well, again, that was probably attributed because they didn't want
Quite
what
possibly.
was being taught in schools.
Quite possibly.
Yeah. And I got another question.
Yes, ma'am.
This is a little off of, I'm sure, the budget thing, but I just don't want to forget this. What's going on with the math and science area at the high school that's leaking right now?
You mean the roof in the building? The roof leaks. We have a plan for the roof to be repaired. I'm going to turn to look at Jake and talk about the roof repair.
Yeah, so
Replacement.
we are actually in between architects because we previously had an architect for the district, but we went away from that.
Uh-huh.
And so we were talking with our attorney. The architect with Pinnacle is actually not our architect.
Uh-huh.
He's the county's architect. And so we have to go through the RFQ process of selecting an architect to sign that because of the size and the scope of that by general statute has to be guided by an engineer and architect.
To repair the roof?
Correct.
Okay, and in the meantime, what are you doing about the water and the mold?
So we've got no indications of
Yes.
We have leaks, but we have not been reported mold.
I beg to differ. It stinks down there, and that is microbial growth.
So we've got
and it's not going to wait on 2 architects or whatever. 24 to 36 hours, you get microbial growth going.
Yeah, we'll be happy to do an air quality test in that building too.
Well, it's not just air quality. It's like what's in the structure.
So again, an architect.
And like these students, I mean, just so everybody knows, and we're being transparent here, these students, if it rains, they have to be moved to other rooms because it leaks in there.
There have been instances of that, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it is based on our capital request, we are requesting the funds in this year's budget to be able.
I mean, can there not be something done temporarily to stop the leaking?
So there have been temporary fixes repeated, but that roof is it's 20 years over 20 years.
I was going to say it's really aged.
Okay, another thing, and I'm not sure if this has to do with y'all or the school. What about the greenhouses out there that are not working properly, like for the students that are in the FAA or the horticulture and all that? Like the motors are burned out on 2 of them, and the ventilation process, and something with the shade cloths.
Yeah, so there's a couple things. So the long and the short of that one is working with Miss Dills and finding a company. So
that greenhouse was designed and built when E-Building was built at Smoky Mountain High School, again, over 20 years ago.
Right.
And the decision was made by the county's architect at that time to go with a specific company that is this is our stuff, nobody else will work on their stuff because it's proprietary. That company doesn't want to service us and doesn't want to come out. So we are going through the process of finding somebody that will redesign it. But again, that'll be pretty expensive. Now, I will say that maintenance guys, particularly Caleb Powell, has done an outstanding job of patching it together and getting it to work. But there are things like the shade cloth and the vent, the roof vents that were poorly designed from the very beginning by the county architect.
But is that what's the motor issue out there? Like the motors are burned out?
So the motors are more related. So there's no motor that's burned out. It's that the tracks, the motors work, but the tracks that actually lift the glass on the top, if you engage the motors, it throws it off the track. So the motors are fine, it's the track, and so you can't open the top. So that was how it was designed, and not to need a cooling system. So we couldn't get that fixed, so Ms. Deal spent quite a bit of money to install a cooling system. Well, again, you had to utilize that same company. We had to beg them to come out and put in that cooling system. They put in that cooling system. They were clearly not happy about being there. And they put it in, and it's not level, and so it leaks. So it dumps an enormous, a cooling system should recirculate its water and add just a little bit every once in a while. Well, it's perpetually leaking, so we have to do things with that. So you are correct. It was poorly designed by the county architect 20 years ago, and we are now faced with having to find somebody that will come in and restart it. But we can't go with the company that the county had selected to begin with because they really don't want to service this.
Well, I think I'd fire them.
Well, we can't fire them because they won't even come out.
Oh, well.
So it's irrelevant.
I mean, it ought to be like a moot point, just get somebody else. I mean, those kids need things like that to learn and as they go. And then one other thing that I think was kind of appalling was the horticultural part was not class or whatever you want to call it, was not put in, and they said it was too late to put it in the spring. So the kids are out there trying to grow plants to sell that are so far behind the 8-ball already that, I mean, they're not going to even be ready to sell.
So you're referring to the horticulture 1 and 2 classes?
I think so.
So that master schedule is built on course requests. And so when the students sign up in the spring, we take all the course requests and divide it out to see how many sections of each class we need. So there may not have been a section of work in the fall. There wasn't a section in the fall, but it was because students were signed up for alternate classes that we made based on those student choices.
Right, but now this was for the spring.
There is a horticulture class out there in the spring. They are there.
Okay, I just don't think it was, okay. I'll check back into it. I was just told it was not early enough, or.
They did not have a class in the fall. And so typically when they start the plugs, it is in November and December. So
Correct.
It is a late start.
Correct, yeah. You would start your seeds.
Yes.
And then you plant your plugs into December, January, yeah. Okay.
And Angie manages the department, supervises the department, the career and technical education, which is what that falls under.
It's very difficult to make sure that kids get everything that they want and maintain all the choices that we have with a limited staff. So when you walk into one of those classrooms out there, you'll find teachers who teach 3 different preps a day to make sure that we're offering the breadth of everything that the kids want.
Right.
So basically we have 2 teachers who are managing four pathways: the agricultural mechanics lab, which is welding, and the horticulture classes, which are the is connected to the greenhouse, animal science, and natural resources.
Right.
And so that's up to 8 to 12 different classes for them. So with 2 teachers, they are stretched very, very thin.
Yeah.
Based on that, and students, once they get those pathways, they'll sign up for every class. So rotating that through the years is somewhat difficult, but that's how we allocate teachers for any type of electives that the
Yeah. Okay.
And I think that's a good point to mention is we have a very robust career and technical education program. In Jackson County, we offer more than 50 different CTE classes. And then when they're spread thin, sometimes they don't make if only 2 kiddos sign up for that class in the fall. It doesn't make for a class. But those are good questions. Thank you.
Right. And maybe you would get more signed up if it was stressed more because they don't understand that if they took it in the fall, then it would transpire with
Feed
the
into-
plugs and the seeds and the
Right.
whole 9 yards, you know?
Yeah,
Maybe
that's a
it
good
needs
point.
to be a little bit more explained because again, they are all in the learning process.
Absolutely.
But anyway, okay.
Thank you.
But I'm still worried about the water intrusion and the mold because it stinks down there.
Okay. We're doing air quality tests. We'll order that. All right, the next slide is just for your reference to see what our operating cost for personnel over the last 4 years, what they look like. I thought it was a nice graphic for you to take a glimpse at it. If you look at our budget and our operating costs for personnel for the current, for the past year, it was a little bit dipped from the 2023 year, and that's simply because, as I referenced earlier, the benefits dipped for a year, but now they're rising again for the upcoming year. The next slide does show the increase in our benefit for Social Security and retirement, and then our insurance, what that looks like over time. And that's nearly 10 years worth of data to look at how it's steadily climbing, but you're all very well aware of that in any business that you operate. This is a slide that I thought was really important for us to talk about because in the past, when I've stood before you, I've never shared this information with you. I've probably referenced it, but I wanted you to look at and see what really happens with some funding. So a portion of the funds that we are given are prorated, and then we have to pay out to charter schools. Currently, we are paying out, by the end of this year, we will have paid out approximately $1 million of the budget that is allocated to us to charter schools. And there are a list of charter schools that they go to, primarily the ones that are in closest proximity, the one in Cashiers, the one in Haywood County, and then the one in Swain County. So just of those three, per month, we're paying about $80,000 a month to those three primary charter schools that are closest to us. We pay a little bit more to some smaller ones that are serving students online, but just so you're aware, any child that resides in Jackson County, if they choose to go to a charter school, whether it's in Jackson County or Buncombe County or Swain or Macon, they get the funds that pass through to us. So this year, we're going to be right about $1 million of pass through.
They get 100% of the funds?
They do. They get state funds directly from the state. They get about, Christy, $212 per student. And so is that 100% of the pass through?
You have to count all of the county allocation for that. And then
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
I concur, but
For $1 million that you're not going to use.
well, I'm asking for $1.5 million for the upcoming year because of that loss, we are anticipating that we're going to crest $1 million by the final year. June 30th is out, and with our numbers looking about 80 down, that those are likely going to charter schools. And so,
Is that required by the state for you to have to come up here and ask for the money and then pass it on through?
yes, sir.
They should have to come up here and stand before us and ask for the money, I think.
I also
I'm not
concur.
Are you familiar with the case that's working its way to the Supreme Court now about federal and state funding going to Christian-based schools?
I am vaguely familiar. There's a lot of fodder about that right now.
There is. If that happens, will that also be?
Yes.
Okay.
That will impact us, yes.
Yeah. Thanks.
And so, when you look at how much money we pass through, I respect the right of any person to take their child where they choose to. But I have also been a parent of a kid that went to other schools, and I paid for it out of my pocket. So, whether you believe or don't believe, I do think that me standing here and asking for money for you every year that then I turn around and give to someone else just doesn't seem fair.
I appreciate it. I don't know if anybody else does, but I do.
And then what you've all been waiting for, the last slide is our budget ask for this year. So you have seen this already, but I wanted to make sure that what I haven't done in past years is really delineate out those bottom 3 lines. So what you will see is an increase for our no-cost meals. Last year, I stood here asking for about $500,000, which we certainly will have exhausted by the end of the school year, but we need more because the cost of everything has increased. When we talk about the increase for those no-cost meals, that encompasses not just the fact that we're buying food, but the employees, the school nutrition employees, all of those pieces, the supplies, the equipment, that helps us to make sure that we are able to maintain that. If you don't have an oven or a dishwasher, you're not going to be able to prepare meals for students.
So we done 500,000 last year, right?
You did.
And you asked-
And it's going to shake out because we worked out a really good billing system. So y'all don't just hand us $500,000 every month or every couple months. We do send the invoices.
So you send the invoices. Are we at 500,000 or have we exceeded? Okay.
Well, but if we were at 500,000 last year and they had a 5% increase in kids, that's $25,000.
You had 5% increase in students?
In participation
Oh,
of the meals, yes.
Mm-hmm.
You'll also see that line that has the charter school line, which is an estimate of about $1.5 million. And then that line that has the Jackson Community School HVAC and fire alarm system. So those top, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No, you're fine.
How many students this coming, you're coming up to graduation, but after graduation next year, how many students are you going to have at the community school?
Approximately 30.
30.
So I currently have 57 students. I have 19 graduates. I'm moving the middle school program that is there to Smoky Mountain Elementary. That's public knowledge, but I only have 5 or 6 middle schoolers right now. So when it all shakes out, there will be about 30 students at Jackson Community School, which is one reason I was very interested in relocating to another campus.
Well, the other thing, if we can get the tech part of it going on with the trades rather, then you're probably going to have a whole lot more increase in that.
How many staff do we have at
19 total full-time staff. That includes the teachers that are certified in their specific area. So this is always a question that comes up. For our high school classes, they have to be certified in high school science or high school math. So they may be sitting with a class size of 8 kids in a math 1 class, but I still have to have a certified math teacher there. We have already made a decision to relocate some of those positions. So we currently have an assistant principal position there. They will not have one for the upcoming year because I do not see a need to have a principal and an assistant principal with 30 children on campus.
No.
Now, I certainly want to grow that program and make it more robust, but the reality is 30 students do not need 2 administrators. We have repurposed another position that somebody who already is employed there. I'm not saying names, but this is public information that my board has been made aware of. So there will be a position that someone left and moved, and we're not filling that position. So we're looking at slimming down a little bit, but still meeting the needs of our students. I think Mr. Bryson and I had a conversation in passing one day based off a suggestion by a community member about what would it look like if our alternative setting was on the campus of our local community college. I think it's a grand idea. Henderson County, if you want to
Do
investigate
we own the library out there that they're going to be moving out of?
The county owns the Holt Library. Is that what you're asking?
They own it.
Yeah.
They own that, right?
SCC owns it?
SEC campus owns that.
And to that conversation, I have had a conversation with the chairman, former commissioner, Mark Jones, and he's very open to it. Have you talked to Don Thomas?
I was supposed to meet with him last week, but I had to reschedule that appointment on my account because I had a doctor's appointment. But
I
we
don't
are
know how-
meeting when school is out to have a conversation about, I mean, I think it's an ideal opportunity for our students in an alternative setting to be able to be on that campus and learn a trade during the course of the day, every day. I think that that would bolster.
I think that's a very good idea.
Yeah, it would open the door for them to be able to
Yes.
have an opportunity to actually make a living.
And hopefully stay off of drugs.
And I sent Dr. Thomas the link to Henderson County because theirs is a very good, a very successful program, and I want to mimic that is what I'd like to do.
How does the school board feel about? Have they had any discussion?
Not directly about the relocation, but they are absolutely in favor of having our kids engaged in more of the SEC classes for those trades.
I would rather put $500,000 towards a facility or updating the facility at SEC for those students as to put it in a school that was built what year, Darlene?
1950, 57, I believe. Is
Do
the
we know if
number.
there was any asbestos on the lines, heating lines? 'Cause I'm pretty
I can
sure
only assume
there is.
that there is
Right.
because that campus is so old.
Yeah, and if they start messing with
Mhm.
HVAC, then they're probably gonna have to pull that out.
Quite
and
possibly.
That's probably more than the building's worth, just to be honest.
How much of that school are y'all using? The whole,
I mean, there is something in every space of it right now. There are 57 kids there. But if you think about taking the elementary, the middle school kids and moving them to SME, we
Just
would need
asking.
4 core classes, 4 classes plus, counselor and those types of things. But I think we could easily only be using half of that building right now because it used to house 300 to 400 students when it was Scotts Creek.
how many square foot is that building?
I don't know the answer to that. Do you know off the top of your head? I do
What
not
I'm
know off the
getting
top
at
of
is
my head.
how big of a building would y'all need at SCC for, to
So I think it depends because that's the $1 million question. If we were to move it over there to that campus, I bet we would have an increase in students.
But I also think that SCC needs to step up and help our students out in those programs, and especially with all the county pays for them.
Well,
I agree with that.
I mean, I think they'd be open to it because, I mean, that's all the teachers, correct me if I'm wrong, they'd be under the college's umbrella, is that right?
The trade teachers, the SEC class, but our students would still have to have our core math, science, and those types of classes. They
And then
would
they
still
could
be
get-
employed. It would be just like JCEC,
Right.
where there would be a flow that goes all day long. I'd love to see that. Our JCEC campus is busting at the seams, but if they had another place on that campus,
How many
then
students-
our alternative could be in the current JCEC building.
Good idea. How many students is in the early college?
117 was the last look, and we're taking an additional 10 for the incoming freshman class. We usually take 30, we're taking 40. They're eager to get in. We had 100 applicants for there. So I think that's a lovely conversation that I've had with my team already, and I love it. But
Everybody feel good about it?
my team, absolutely. I think that, I don't want to be disrespectful to Dr. Thomas because that is his campus and I don't want to intrude. But I think if we look at the big picture for our students, this could be really good for the workforce in Jackson County and for our community.
Well, they don't have to graduate from the community school and then have to feel anxiety and all this stuff about or think they can't make it at SCC.
But remember, if they're enrolled, they can go to SEC for free as a dual enrollment.
Right. They've just step right in and get the certifications that they need or want in order to make a living. I think it's a win-win.
I would love for you to support that conversation with Dr. Thomas and I.
I'll put a call into it.
Okay. And then the final slide, I just wanted to thank you because these things have happened because you all have supported over the last several years. Our preschool programs, our infant toddler class, we are busting at the seams. We could probably have 5 more infant toddler classes if we could staff them. We have the need and the want and a wait list for that. And all the other expanded high school programs, ROTC, and then the large capital building projects that you've committed to. So I'm very, very appreciative.
Since you mentioned it,
Sure. Go ahead.
Your pre-K program,
Yes.
what would you need to expand that? Because Jackson County is in dire need
Physical space,
of daycare.
employees. Our largest hurdle right now is employees. Um, we have preschool. We have 8 preschool classes. They are all not bursting at the seams. Fairview is always pretty full. Scotts Creek is pretty full. Our 2 outlier schools, they are not always full at Blue Ridge and Smoky Mountain Elementary, and we have 2 at both of those. But that when we opened that infant toddler, which is basically a daycare class, last what was it, Laura, November, early November. We have 6 or 8 in there, 8 students, and a waiting list because y'all all know the situation with childcare. So we would love to see more expansion, and we know that there is a dire need around here. We opened it hoping to retain and recruit staff, and it has certainly done that. But now we need more space and more people. We need more employees to work in that program.
Wouldn't it be nice if we could offer public childcare?
Universal preschool and childcare would be grand.
Easy now, y'all are starting to sound like socialism.
So, Commissioner Smith, did I answer your question?
Sort of. I know staffing is a problem. If the county had a spot, you think you could staff it?
So, is your question that if you had the location, would it run through Jackson County Public Schools? Is that your question? I'm going to turn to Laura Deals, who manages our preschool program, and let her provide some input.
So I am aware of the recent urges that the county made, and I also serve on the Business and Child Care Committee that Tiffany Henry is running for you all as part of economic development. And I've really enjoyed working with that team. And so we have seen very much and heard from community stakeholders, as you're aware, that we are in desperate straits for childcare in Jackson County. One thing about the location that you all purchased that I think could be of benefit, one thing that we struggle to offer in our school settings because we have 1 classroom per school is offering that childcare that, quite frankly, my mom and dad would have needed until 5 o'clock for those people who work an 8 to 5 or a 9 to 5 job. We run the school day, and that's very much restricted by the staffing that we have. I think the location you all purchased, if it were us operating it or someone else, could offer what is very much missing in our community right now, that, you know, kind of 7:30 to 5:30 childcare for people who work general jobs. We have an excellent preschool coordinator that works along under my direction. And so we would love to partner out. We had a meeting this morning online, and I offered to Tiffany that I'd be happy to meet with her. I know she's already met with a licensing consultant, Monica Hauk, about licensing that space and the upgrades that would be needed there. And so whether it were formal through us operating that and taking care of that for you all, if that was something that you all gave a directive, or just an informal partnership, we're definitely committed just because it's a need for our county. So
That kind of seems like a good fit.
It does. One thing, our classrooms were able to utilize some Title I funding to help offset some of those expenses because they're NC pre-K classrooms, and we have to have certified licensed teachers who cost more, sadly, than the non-certified teachers who have like an associate's degree. So I think in a business model, we need to analyze cost and things like that, because with it being an off-site location, we'd have to explore whether Title I funds could be used there or not. We are excited that the subsidy in Jackson County was unfrozen a couple months ago. It had been frozen for over 6 months, I believe. Don't quote me on that specifically, but for a long amount of time. And we were hearing a struggle from parents who did have jobs or were in school full time, who wanted their children in childcare and simply couldn't get that financial support. So there's lots of things that are falling together. I think we'd be happy to have follow-up conversations, whether it's just as informally helping you put that business model together, or if Jackson County operated it. But we're very grateful for what you're working.
And if you talk about pre-K, and I might ask you this, Dr. Ayers, but clarify for everyone, is it what age?
So in terms of child care licensing, you have infant toddler, which is 6 months old until the day before they turn 3 years old.
Mhm.
And then preschool is the day you turn 3 years old until you're basically eligible for kindergarten.
And y'all offer all that?
We do. Our infant toddler class, we have those after they turn 6 weeks old up until the day before they turn 3. So next year we'll have to have a plan if we have a kid who turns 3 during the year for them to transition up. They can't be with the babies for safety reasons, and that makes sense. But we do offer, we only have the one class with the infant and toddlers and it with the 8. And then we have the 8 preschool classrooms, which serve a combination of 3, 4, and 5-year-olds who turn 5 throughout the school year and were eligible for kindergarten.
And do they have access to the school nurses?
They do. They have access to the school nurse, school counseling, behavior support people, whomever they
But they
need.
also get things like playtime, art, some of those elective classes are
Yes.
serving even our preschool students. And we mentioned, I guess 2 years ago when we started talking about this middle school, when we are able to pull students, particularly out of Fairview, and we have that kindergarten preschool wing, Laura and I have talked extensively about really turning that into some childcare hub, for lack of a better word. I think that would be very helpful to our school community to be able to take those classes that are already fitted with bathrooms and such so that we could expand our preschool and possibly our infant toddler offerings.
We need that infant toddler because there's so many people out there that are, like you say, in school.
Well, so there's 4 child care centers in Jackson County shut down in the last
Yeah.
18 months.
And so even if a child has does this child have a slight temperature, they feel warm to the touch, we are able, they can't leave the room, but the school nurse can come into the room and check their temperature or check on them. The restrictions are very strict about those children going out of the licensed space, but they have access to all the same school supports that you all graciously help provide us.
That infant toddler would, it would give parents the opportunity to, like you say, go to school, go to work, make a living.
That's right. That's right.
Weren't some of those places shut down because of mismanagement of money, COVID money?
I
Is
have
that
heard
what it
some of that, but that's all rumor that I've heard. I would not confirm any of that.
I haven't heard that locally. The biggest feedback we heard when we did the stakeholder meetings was about getting highly qualified licensed staff. The wages are low, the work is hard.
Yeah.
And long.
SEC for a period of time had closed out their early childhood associate's degree. They are starting some of that back, and we're partnering with Western Carolina. But it's hard to get someone. There are definitely people in the world who are drawn to those age of children, but they may not have the certifications or be willing to work with the wage.
It's a huge need. I think there's like 150 children in Jackson County alone that needs childcare.
And it does indeed affect our staff. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
particularly, I've got one person in mind right now who's like, "Oh, I'm going to need another spot next year, and I'm not going to be able to teach." And so that is disappointing to be in an area where we really need childcare to provide for our employees, and beyond the 4:30 time period, because things happen beyond 4:30, and a lot of people have to work. If you're a banker, you work till 5 p.m. We'd be happy to be part of that conversation. Laura, as she said, serves on lots of boards, and we've been in several meetings with Tiffany, so we're excited about the purchase of that building too, and hope that we can partner and serve our community.
Now, does the teachers and people that works in the schools, do they get a discount for the child care?
We do offer it. It's not a tremendous amount. It's a $50 difference for our infant toddler class, and I think 50 or 100 different for our preschool classes. Our prices are a little bit lower than the
50 and
child care
100 per
around here.
what?
A discount if you're an employee. So if it's $900 per month for child
what I
care,
meant,
then
per
an
month.
employee
Okay.
gets $850. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
That's a good thing.
And that concludes my presentation. Do you have other questions?
Something else that we can ask questions.
I don't know. Somebody in this audience or I will have an answer for you, or we'll find the answer for you. I'm really proud of the partnership that we have. I know that Randy, our architect from Pinnacle today, commended Kevin and you all as a board and us that he doesn't work with a lot of school districts and county commission boards that are as collaborative and have good conversations. So I appreciate it.
For point of reference, what was your 24, 25 request?
24, 25 off the top of my head. 13.1. 13.1.
And what did we put in the budget?
10 point something. Which means we pulled money out of our fund balance to make the year.
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Greg, maybe.
Greg. See, your turn, Greg.
He's the only one who's not answered something to that.
Yeah. So the alternative school. Okay,
Yes.
you're talking about the fire alarm and the HVAC, and I have firsthand knowledge from complaints that I hear about the networking and devices and stuff there, that it's ancient. It doesn't really work with
we
you.
just upgraded those.
Okay.
This past summer, we put in new switches, brand new Meraki switches in there,
Okay.
and Meraki access points.
All right. My knowledge may be a little old, but you know.
Yeah, top of the line, they're very good.
Okay.
But it is an old building. And
Yeah,
the
well,
structure that we're working with,
yeah,
so.
the complaint I got was like, you know, they plug stuff up and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't, and
Yeah.
they didn't know why it worked. And,
Yeah, so that, there could be a whole bunch of different
well,
reasons for that,
if it's
but-
been upgraded since then, it's,
Absolutely, yeah, it may have been, we may have updated it after that, or it may just be, communication and processes, because we keep ports off for
Right.
network security, so they may just need to let us know that they need that port activated. There could be a lot.
just one. Well, yeah, I just want to make sure that we didn't need to upgrade that as well if we're going to do all that other work to the
We were-
building.
We were fortunate to upgrade, about 80% of our network over the last year, through E-rate funding. So, and our goal is for the next round to take care of that other 20%. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on now to opioid settlement, and Jody, I hope I can say your name right, Roadwall? Okay. And Megan Cagle.
Hello. Thank y'all for having us this evening. We just wanted to share a quick update with y'all of what we've been working on since March, and also our proposal for funding with Wave 1. So we'd like to start with just a recap of our top 4 priority strategies that were identified by our settlement council. So our first one is the recovery support services. This focuses on evidence-based recovery programs and peer support specialists within the community. These programs are able to provide support to individuals who may be using substances and help them to access treatment, support, and resources that are needed to help keep them safe and healthy. The next one is our evidence-based addiction treatment. So this strategy supports evidence-based addiction treatment for opioid use disorder, and that also includes MAT or medication-assisted treatment. The early intervention strategy, that is going to support funds and programs, services, and trainings for early identification and potential substance use and intervention among children and adolescents in the community. And then lastly is the naloxone distribution, which allows education and distribution of naloxone to community members through community organizations and our first responders. So this next slide,
I don't really understand how all that's going to be implemented.
we'll share with you.
Yeah, those are just the strategies.
There's
So-
a whole lot of planning.
It's
Yes,
a lot of
it's a lot
planning.
of
No doing.
It's a lot of planning so far.
That bothers me.
So this is just kind of showing our progress so far and where we're at. So our collaborative strategic planning process. So we just received our request for proposals last month. We reviewed those with our steering committee. And we are thankful for all of the proposals that we did receive from the community. And so now we'd like to share what our steering committee is proposing we spend our funding on.
So as you remember, in March, we presented the funding that we have. So the funding was released in 2022 and will continue to be funded through 2038. And so the top number is the funding that we will receive. We have received $1,820,000 so far. None of that has been spent. It's just sitting in an account. As of, so fiscal year 25-26, we'll receive an additional 490,000. So as of July 1st of 25, we will have 2,310,000 in that account. And none of that has been spent. And all of this can be found on the NC opioid settlement website. There won't always be the same amount that will be released every year. It started with a larger amount so that counties could get programs started. It will go down a little bit between 26 and 28, and then again between 29 and 33, and then it'll start to peter out towards the end. And payouts are released on July 1st of each year. So we're looking at funding 3 years at a time, but reviewing them yearly. So this next slide just goes into more detail about what we have chosen. And so each of these priorities were also included in the White House Statement of Drug Policy Priorities. So they've recommended naloxone distribution, expanding access to medicated assisted treatment, peer recovery. These were all listed among standard policies. So nationally, these are standard policies, and so statewide they are as well. And so we are looking at the first one deals with our recovery support services. So we're looking at starting funding July of 2025 and funding this through June of 2028. And so the request for that is $840,016. And this is to establish a peer-led recovery center that will be in Jackson County. We have nothing like that right now. And so this would be a community center, like a drop-in center where folks could come in and they could get services. They could get connections to services. They would get recovery coaching, navigation to resources, educational programming. And these would help folks that are impacted by opioid use disorder as well as other substance use challenges. So that's one program that we're looking, and that would be starting from the ground up for that program because there's nothing like that here.
I don't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no, you're good.
Before I forget.
Yeah.
Is there not, what's that called? Meridian?
Yeah, that's different. This would be solely peer support led. Yeah. And so it'd be like a drop-in center.
So it's just a drop-in.
Yeah, where folks could come and they could get connected to resources.
Yeah. So it's not like a recovery center.
No. They would get connected. They could get connected to recovery from this center. Yeah.
Include things like AA and I can't remember what the acronym is for
like NA.
Yeah,
they could connect folks to those programs. Yeah, and they could provide educational programs through the center. So this is a group this is not their first rodeo. This is a group that has done this in several other places.
Yeah.
And so.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, and so we're confident that they know exactly what they're doing and they've laid out exactly what they need.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to know the answer to this, but this recovery support service, is this going to be for only Jackson County residents?
Yes, that's the goal. That's the goal, is that these programs that we're putting forth, they're to help out
to show proof of residence and things like that, or
I'm not sure how that would work.
No.
That's a good thought, but yeah, I mean the goal is that these programs are going to serve our counties and the folks in our counties.
Okay, if you're not sure how they live here, I mean, how are you gonna know?
I think they'll work through it, but I guess every county get an allotment. So
Yes.
I mean, I think that our dollars should be used for.
Yes.
That's what I was getting at.
Yes, I agree.
So I think that some sort, I don't know what you'd do to set that up, but maybe show proof of residence of Jackson County before. You hate to do that though. People are battling an addiction,
Right.
But
yeah,
I would rather. We've got a big need in Jackson County, and
we do.
I would rather this money be used on Jackson County residents.
Exactly.
But you hate to turn somebody down that's suffering.
You hate to be the place everybody comes to get it.
Yeah.
Well, the counties too.
Well, and through this recovery support services, they can be sent to the proper place, I guess.
Yeah, because-
We either, you know, if they're residents of Macon County
Mhm.
and there's a support system there, they can
Right.
be.
Exactly.
I maybe being a little biased, but I would think we would have the best in all surrounding counties. So, we don't want everybody coming to Jackson County. You know?
Right. Right.
No.
Yeah.
But thank you. Go
Okay.
ahead.
The next one deals with the evidence-based addiction treatment. So again, funding July 25 through June of 28. This is an existing residential rehabilitation program that is already existing here in Jackson County. They just need a little extra support. And so we're looking to fund them $225,000. So this is again, it's a residential rehabilitation program that already exists. This program equips women who are impacted by opioid use disorder and other substance use challenges. It's a year-long program. So they get support services throughout. It gives them life skills training, workforce development, and then there's continued care after graduation. They follow them up for about 2 years after they've graduated from the program with peer support.
Workforce development meaning what?
Helping them to get jobs, to get job training, job skills. Yeah, so that they can be sustainable after they leave the program.
Whips women. That's good. But what about men?
We don't currently have a program in Jackson County that serves men. There is men's challenge in Macon County, but this is a program just for women.
Sounds like somebody needs to start a program up for men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did not receive a proposal for that. But I feel like we felt like as a steering committee that we need a rehabilitation center in Jackson County, regardless of whether it's for men or for women. We can't let that go.
No, we need
really
they
have to go up to Buncombe County
I'm not
and
against
further.
that. I was just asking. Yeah.
Sure. No, I agree. Yeah. The next proposal is for early intervention. So again, looking to fund July 25 through July 28. This program would be expanding substance use education and treatment by hiring a mental health addiction specialist. And this would be for youth services in Jackson County. So the specialist would collaborate with juvenile justice, with the schools, with the recovery community agencies, outpatient-based opioid treatment, and social services. And these would be for children and adolescents who may be struggling with substance use or mental health conditions. So they're looking for $234,298.48 for those 3 years to fund this position.
So you work with juvenile justice, which we've just.
Mm-hmm.
What about? And I don't know when the correct date for the domestic violence shelter, but some of those may not be, on drugs, but some of the children that are staying there and some of the women may have, or maybe men, but anyway, have been, I don't know, with someone, with a man or with a woman that has been addicted to drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Can you work with them or with this?
This is to mainly for this children and adolescents.
And I'm saying to target those children possibly living with their mother at domestic violence shelter, because there's a lot of times that women are leaving men because they're being abused because of drugs and alcohol.
Right.
So that may just be something to think about.
And I don't think this program would turn away from helping any youth in the county.
Right. No,
So,
I'm just trying to think of
And this
getting
is
everyone. You know.
And this is an existing organization that has been proven, within the county to do really good work. So they're just wanting to expand it, so they can address substance use disorders.
Yeah, early intervention is key.
It is.
If you get it stopped soon,
yeah, exactly.
But sadly, children are exposed to it, and they can't do nothing about it.
Right. Yeah. And then the last one is the naloxone distribution. Again, funding July 25 through June 28. So this is an already existing program that we run at the health department. So it's opioid education as well as naloxone distribution. And so we're able to, at this point, we're working under grants. Our grants will only go through
August
of next year.
Mhm.
So we're really, we wouldn't need the funding until August of next year. So
Is naloxone like Suboxone? I
No.
mean, it's almost like the drug.
no, it's not. It's an antagonist. So it's basically like an antidote for someone who is overdosing. So it's not a drug.
It's the
not-
reversal
It's
medication.
reversal medication.
Then
Oh, so it's not to take to help you get off the
No.
drug?
No,
Oh, I got
no,
you.
it's to reverse an overdose.
Yeah, okay. All right,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah, and there's laws protecting folks to be able to carry it, to be able to administer it.
There's been, that's not just for, I hate to say it like this, but even like seniors
Mhm.
who maybe take a little too much. I mean, there's been a big opioid kind of movement. My wife has been doing some stuff with you guys and
Mhm.
handing out, these naloxones just because people forget. Did I take that pill?
Yeah,
Maybe I
right.
didn't.
Yeah, so people are getting it with their prescriptions as well. It just in case something were, so a family member can intervene. So it's but I'm glad you brought that up because it's for that too. It's safe to use in children and elderly and
And it takes that point of contact to the pharmacy where they say, this is a
Mhm.
opioid, you need to be careful.
Yeah, and it's quite expensive to buy over the counter, and so we're able to give it out, for free, so people have the ability to have it, and so that program has been really successful. So we'd like to see that continue. So we realize that this, if we add this all up, it's a lot of money. Each strategy does align with the North Carolina Memorandum of Agreement that was drafted by the Attorney General. This process is carefully monitored and supported by the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners and the Opioid Settlement Technical Assistance Team. I meet with the Technical Assistance Team once a month, and we will submit an annual impact report to them. So that's something that happens every year. The organizations that we would like to fund, they'll be required to have a meeting once a month for guidance and technical assistance, and they're also going to be required to submit impact reports. And as part of the proposals, each organization was also asked to share their sustainability plan. So what is their plan moving forward? So if we fund them for 3 years, what does that look like for them moving forward? So that was also part of the proposal.
The thing I like is, if we have a need that we can identify, this is $1.4-ish million. That leaves us with an additional 900,000 in our opioid funds. So if we find something that is really working, direct some funds there.
I would like to see.
I think, like Todd said, I think prevention is the key.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and I'd like to see the program that the sheriff has started down there. I'd like to see that continue as long as it's a success, because those people, they're thought of as criminals, which they are, but they need a little bit of help,
Right.
So, and you say it's a lot of money, but it's not too much, because these people's lives we're talking about.
Exactly.
Too many times I've seen loved ones that's lost family member, child, father or mother, and have to. It's just so sad to see. So, whatever it takes, I think.
Yeah. I mean, we have people that are alive now because of these strategies that have been working. So I would, that's our goal, is to see some things start happening in our county so that people have places to go where they can get help. And we can work on preventing some of that.
That's great.
Yeah, it is.
Thank y'all so much.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions by the board? I feel like we need to have a intro music for our next guest, Mr. Poston, and our county planning report.
Third
Yeah,
time's a
walk
charm.
walk in.
I'll get it right one of these days.
We'll see if we can get Morgan Wallen.
I need someone cool, so find me someone cool. I need all the help I can get.
This is 2 pages, right?
2 pages, very long page. Like think of it as like a roll of paper towels. No, I always appreciate CP for helping me out. I'm before you quite often, and I get to talk about a variety of different things that we are doing at the county level, but it's not very often I get to talk to folks about the the totality of what the planning department does, and the work that gets done and how we go about doing that work. So I always start off with, when I give this presentation, I get to give it somewhat regularly. This is a scene out of Alice in Wonderland. I know it's a nursery tale and a cartoon, but a children's cartoon. But hear me out. This is where Alice meets the Cheshire Cat after she gets into Wonderland, and here's the conversation. She's asking for directions. Which way should I go? The Cheshire Cat says, "Well, it depends on where you want to get to." Her response at the time was, "Well, it doesn't really matter." And the Cheshire Cat says, "Well, then it really doesn't matter which way you go." And that's planning. If you don't know where you're getting to, it doesn't matter which road you take to get there. It's and the planning is designed to help identify that road and make those connections to the planning process, through the community input process, to devise a roadmap that you can be where you want to be in 10, 15, 20, and 30 years as a community. Real quick, I'm not going to read all of this. You have it in front of you. Planning started and grew out of public health crisis in cities, mainly in the late 19th century, overcrowding, disease, and we started to say, hey, wouldn't it be good if we had some basic rules and concepts of how, hey, you shouldn't have a building that's taller than your ladder truck. How are you going to put out a fire? You should have access points. You should have windows and things like that. The first plan comes in 1909 in the city of Chicago. Why I put that in there is because the first plan created wasn't actually done by a municipality. It was by a trade organization, by the Merchants Association in Chicago that said we need a plan of how we get there. And then Daniel Burnham is considered to be the father of modern planning. And all that statement tells you is that he believes in making, bold plans. If you were to sum this up in today's verbiage, you might say, hey, we want to swing for the fences, we want to go big or go home, we want big ideas, big thoughts, because that's how you move people into action, that's how you move communities forward. In the mid-20th century, we start to see a growth in the types of concepts that we're considering. Environmental and social concepts are really coming into planning, and to our detriment, in that same time frame, planning lost its connection to public health. And so when you think about how you design cities, how you design spaces, and how that has a direct impact to public health, you lost that connection. You end up with a lot of disconnected pieces of your built environment, which impacts how people can experience those places, or even how they exercise, even how they the determinants of health. So in the 21st century, as we came in, we saw these two disciplines coming back together, which is very beneficial for how communities build. And then we get to this, and I think Commissioner Hooper mentioned this earlier, the difference between planning, talking about it, and doing it. And I think for a long time, planners, we get these plans, we want to tell you all these great things, but we don't spend as much time telling you how we did doing that, how we did the work that we said we were going to do, and were we successful in it. And we see more of that, more emphasis in that in our profession nowadays. General knowledge about North Carolina. North Carolina, in terms of zoning regulation, is broken up into 3 different classifications. The first one is the zone that you're totally zoned county, meaning every piece of property has a land use value assigned to it. Those are in blue. There's about 67 of them when this was made. Partly zoned counties, which is what Jackson County falls into. We don't zone the totality of it. We don't use our zoning authority for all of it, just for portions of it. There's 13. And then where you're going to see in the far western parts of the county and the state, the far eastern parts of the state, is where they don't exercise any zoning authority. Now, it doesn't mean they don't have development regulations. It just means that the development regulations they use don't include land use zoning or classifications for every piece of property in the jurisdiction. And then this is to piggyback on, this is our Cashers zoned area, the Crossroads area, 64-107. This is our Coley planned area and zoning district in and around, essentially in and around Western Carolina University, up into Savannah Road, and then taking you to school and the rec center down the southern end, which is kind of right in here. And then the Gateway Corridor, going up the Gateway exit towards the hall boundary and in and around that area. So who are we? Obviously, I'm the director. I have 3 other staff that help us do the work that we do. Our senior planner, John Jelenuski, Ashley Clapsall is our entry-level planner, Planner 1, and Allison Kelly is our administrative assistant. And I'll tell you that you've got a great planning staff, and we cover a lot of area with 4 people and a lot of breadth of work that we do. A lot of that is because of their skill set and ability. For those that aren't aware of what John's background is, before he came to the county, he spent a career, 30 plus years, in engineering and design work and building, constructing roads and doing those things, houses. He's got all this background, which is a really unique skill set for a planning department, especially a local planning department, to have, because it means that we don't just talk about policy, we actually talk about how that policy gets implemented and impacts the built environment in a much more complete way. And then, I'm, Ashley's new to our group, but she's not new to the county. She's worked in our environmental health section for a few years before she came over to work with us. And then Allison, for anybody that's contacted our office, you're probably talking to Allison first, and she keeps all of us moving in the right direction, our workflow moving. So because of that, I believe we do have as effective a planning department as you'll see in Western North Carolina, especially for the size of our department. Our responsibilities really come into two separate tracks. One is long-range planning. That's our comprehensive planning for future growth and development. That's our comprehensive land use plan that we just talked about. That's our capture plan studies, our Coley small area plans. Also includes comprehensive transportation planning, which we do with the state, and we also work with other departments in their planning efforts, from time to time as necessary. So that's the long range. That's the big picture. That's the roadmap type of work. Well, we also do day-to-day work. So the ordinance enforcement and maintenance. That's rules that as a community, as a board, you said, hey, here are the rules about how we're going to develop property in this county. We manage that on a daily basis. We provide all the administrative support for the planning boards and councils. So we have 3 planning councils: a planning board, historic preservation commission, and then of course we provide support to other departments within the county on some of their work, and of course the board of commissioners when necessary. We do plat and subdivision approvals every time you divide a piece of land in Jackson County. We have rules governing that, and our office helps manage that and work with them to get them through the process of subdividing property, whether it's for a family member, whether it's just a 1 acre cutoff, or if it's a traditional, 20 lot subdivision. We span all of those. We do site plan reviews. If you're going to build a new, commercial structure, especially within our zone districts, we would do that review. And we do some other reviews outside of our zone districts for watershed and our water recharge ordinance. We also review new cell tower applications and co-locations with new providers want to go on the same tower. And we also work in housing and community development through our CDBG program, which we help apply for and manage from time to time to deal with housing. The most recent one that we helped work on with other departments was the water and sewer system at Blue Ridge. Was a CDBG grant, and we helped work to manage that grant.
Did you do a site plan for Cody Lewis's gas station?
We reviewed it, yes. Yeah. Planning history in Jackson County. Jackson County actually has a really long history in planning and thinking about how we move forward as a community. It starts in 1868 with the Recreation Master Plan. We've got references to it. I don't know that we've ever found an actual copy still. It's kind of unique because, counties didn't get the authority to start really doing a lot of land use work until 1959 by the state legislature. Jackson County's been doing it for a number of years. We had planning documents done in 74, 77, 85, and then every 7 to 10 years after that, we've updated our plans pretty regularly. And it goes all the way down to the most recent plan that we completed with the state's help is the pedestrian plan. But I like to talk about the 1974 development plan because this is the best example of why we do land use planning. So these are the implementation. There's about 7 implementation strategies that were adopted in that plan or spoken about. And every one of those have come to fruition over the years, but it's taken us about 30 years to do that. So it starts with establishing and building and code enforcement, and hiring that staff. It was done in 1974. We talked about adopting a sedimentation and erosion control for local governance of that. We did that in 2000, creating a water and sewer authority, all the way to looking at implementing zoning and adopting subdivision standards. All those things have been talked about for 3 decades before we actually got to them. But again, it's those conversations that over the long term that led us to some of the decisions that were made over time. And that's the planning process. And it can take a long time, but it's a commitment to community conversation over those years. This is a map that we include, that we developed for our comprehensive land use plan that we adopted in 2017. It's really just for illustration purposes. We don't regulate anything off of this, but it's interesting to talk about the geography of Jackson County and why it's challenging and incumbent upon us to have really good conversations about how we're going to grow and develop over time. The purple areas are what we would call the areas that have lower development potential. Either they're the 70,000 acres in federal land, which we're not going to develop much. They're steep slopes. They're floodways and floodplains, and they're just really tough areas to develop. But it's eye-catching that there's a lot of purple on our map. The green is more moderate, what we consider more moderately developable land slopes, between 20 and 35%. Our floodplains, which are allowed to develop within, and then what we consider the higher developable areas are in white, and typically those are going to be around your plateau area, Cashers, Cullowhee Forest Hills, Webster, Silva, Dillsboro area, 441 corridor, and you've got some coming down towards Cowee. But it just shows you that those areas that are easily developable have already been developed and redeveloped several times. And I had an archaeologist point out to me when I did this presentation one time that's not changed. So civilizations have built over civilizations over time in these areas because of their ability to sustain life. So the current planning work that we do, that's our day-to-day. That's our site plan review, zoning permits. We do our council's historic preservation work and housing work. Just to give you an idea of the numbers that we kind of see, we average in and around 140, 150 permits issued. That is across not only the county jurisdictions, but we also manage through interlocal agreements the zoning ordinances of all 4 municipalities. So these permits being issued are also the work that we do in conjunction with those entities. So what goes into it says the aquatic center, but it's really Cezanne, so I apologize about that. But what goes into a plan review? We're really looking at the building footprint. So here, this is the plan that was approved for the new Cezanne on Old Cullowhee Road. So they've got their restaurant, their parking. We take a look at the sidewalks that we'll require to be built to connect to existing sidewalks out there. And so all those pieces are part of that stormwater, grading of property, the setbacks, landscaping when that time comes. And then in addition, our planning council, because we have architectural standards for non-residential buildings, will take a look at exterior materials, building height, windows, roof types. So these are the types of plans that we'll see and work with our planning councils, and in this particular case, the planning council, to accomplish. In addition to that, like I mentioned earlier, we do subdivision plat review every time property gets divided. We have to review that by our local regulations. We're in and around the 200 plats per year reviewed mark. Um, some of those are minor subdivisions, some of them are families, and not not all of those would be 100 lot subdivisions, right? So most of those are going to be smaller, less than 9 lots, or majority of what we would do. So, in addition to the subdivision regulations, I think everyone's aware that we have a slope ordinance, and that talks about, you know, maximum density for residential development on slopes depending on their average grade or slope. And so, for every subdivision that we have to review, we also have to do a slope analysis to determine how many units per acre we can achieve. In 2015, the ordinance was modified to increase the slope to 35%. It was at 30, so we moved up to 35% after some studies were done that suggested that most of our slope failures were on modified slopes that were greater than 35%. So we increased that limit to match what we saw happening in the area. Today we use AutoCAD. We use 4-foot contours from the state LiDAR that they fly every 4 years, and we use an AutoCAD program with the calculation. And our department will create this modeling of the property that gives us the overall slope. In this case, the average slope of this property is 45%. The sliding scale tells you that at 45%, you need 6.21 acres per dwelling or lot that you create. And so,
So if you put more lots on that, then, I mean, what's the potential?
So I think that what we will do, so what we would say in this case with a slope of 45%, we'd say that if that property is 24 acres or 36 acres, we're looking at 4 to 6 lots, depending on, you'll need six acres per dwelling or lot. And out in the county, you can put multiple dwellings on a property without dividing it. Yeah.
What would be the wrongdoing of putting more on that?
So I think the idea that the ordinance is taking a look at it and why that is there is the more times you modify a slope, you're impacting the integrity of that slope. So will that make that slope more likely to fail the number of times that you modify it? So I think that's why they look at these density requirements or size of property requirements to for the basic safety of, hey, here's how we're impacting these slopes. I would mention, though, I think there's a tool that we have in our ordinance that we've developed over the years where we help folks achieve, more density without impacting the steeper slopes of the property. So what we do is we allow for there to be a non-buildable area identified, and we work with, their design professional surveyors typically. We identify the areas that have the steepest slopes, and if the property owner is willing to say, "Hey, we're not going to develop those areas," and they put it on the plat that we record, we'll not count those against them in their slope ordinance. So they can their steeper slopes will be taken out because they're not going to develop those, and then we can hopefully work with them to allow more density on the property that's less steep.
So when you do that, you put that in like a what's it called? Conservation easement.
Yeah.
So how does and I'm not throwing off on cashers, don't get me wrong, but how does some of these subdivisions up there get by with putting big old houses on little bitty lots? And then whenever I got ready to put a new house in, I have 4 or 5 acres, and I'm cheap, and I have to put in like half an acre into conservation easement.
So
I could never do anything on it. But I don't understand, and there's been other people to reach out to me.
Sure. I think that's a combination of a couple things that occur. So we have a lot of lots that were created prior to the time that we had a slope ordinance.
That's what I was told by John when I asked him.
Yeah, that's one of them. Another is that when you take an average slope, so if I've got a larger piece, and we have some larger properties in Cashel and everything, a couple subdivisions that have several hundred acres in conservation that help reduce some of that slope. So it's not saying that, you know, you, so which would allow them based on their acreage to kind of cluster down into some smaller lot sizes potentially. But it really is every property is just a little bit different, and we, anything that was created, several thousand lots that were created before the ordinance was adopted and in place. There's still a lot of vacant land out there that are legal, what we call legal non-conformings. They were created legally at the time they were created, and we're obligated to honor that ability to build on those sites. And so it's always a balance when we have these conversations, but we have developed over time tools to try to help folks, achieve what they hope to achieve with their property. Even though there's some, not every property is the same. You have some that have nothing but really steep parts to it. Others that have more of a rolling, what we call mountain step type of.
Because the way I understand it is, and you tell me if I'm not correct, the more land you own, the less the slope will be. Because if you own land from way up here to way down here, your slope's gonna be a whole lot less than if you own this piece over here, you're gonna have a very steep slope.
In some cases, that's the case, but I think that it just really depends on where your property lines, where your property is, because some properties don't really have a lot of rolling or less steep portions to it or lower slopes, and sometimes you get to situations like this one in this example, 45%. There's a lot of steep places to that property that there's not enough of that area. But some properties are small and
From what I understand, that y'all adopted it from Georgia, which only has like one ridge line in Georgia.
So
Not with the slope line.
I've heard pieces of that. This ordinance predates my time with the county by about a decade, but
That's what it was.
yeah. So
Adopted it from Georgia.
I think some of the ridge tops were the slope ordinance. I think there's several other jurisdictions in the Western North Carolina that has slope ordinances that will talk about this. I think we modeled some of this off of Buncombe County's or Asheville's model they had at the time. I think ridgeline, we were talking about ridge protection. I think part of that came from some language in Georgia.
What constitutes a protected ridge line? I mean, what makes one ridge line protected and the next one not?
Depending on how much land you own down below it.
So the ridge portion of it, which is there's two different we have two different ordinances that address the ridge top protection. One is the one that the state created, based off they're both the state statute, but the one is directly from the state statute that was adopted, I think, in 1981, that talks about state protected ridges, which is 3,000. It has to be the elevation of the ridge has to be 3,000 feet above sea level, and it has to be more than 500 feet from the adjacent valley floor. And then the state, at that time, the state had cartographers, mapping professionals that came in and mapped all those out for everybody, and they used best management practices to show that calculation, and those are the state protected ridge lines. The county, when they adopted the MHDO, they added that 2,500 foot and then 400 feet from the valley floor. So the locally protected ridge that we did through MHDO at the time was 2,500 feet. So that encompassed a lot more. So you may see two ridges that are both 2,500 feet. One ridge is in and the other one is out. The reason for that is probably because what the valley floor, it's not as high above the adjacent valley. More than 400 feet in elevation above that valley. I believe part of the reason for that is they wanted to try to protect more prominent ridge lines, and the higher they ascend over the valley, they have more prominence. I believe would be my educated guess as to why that was that calculation was used.
So back to the slope.
Yeah.
So all we're gaining by having that in place is just protecting the slopes.
Preventing another Peaks Creek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's trying to we live in an area that is susceptible to landslides. I mean, I don't think that's any great secret. I mean, we live in the mountains. That's an inherent risk. And I think when we did the landslide studies, I think 14, 15, 16, that time frame. Part of the information that they went out and when they were going to different landslides and potential landslide areas, what they noticed and documented was that modified slopes above 35% and slopes were the ones that are most likely to fail or had failed. And I think again that's part of that is a public, is more of a safety. How do we help people build in this area and encourage best building practices? Now that doesn't mean you can't build on a slope that's greater than 35%. This is just really talking about the division of land and the number of units. You can build on slopes that are greater, and we certainly have that. But that ordinance also talks a little bit about needing some geotechnical engineering because the higher you get on that slope for building purposes, and the footers have to be deeper in some places, and so we have some language that leads us to asking for more documentation from those higher sloped properties.
You can't build on the easement, right?
Yeah, so if we would talk about protected areas to try to reduce the impact of the slope and to add more units, we would, that part, that's the trade-off in that system, to help, work with, and it's a tool we've used quite a bit, and I think successfully with folks to try to help them achieve some of the density that they want, the number of units they want to see.
Like one that came when I was on the planning council was up near your area, and they added a lot of like hiking trails
Yeah.
to this area. So it was like it wasn't that you couldn't utilize that space.
Just not
some limitations. You couldn't.
Yeah.
Can't get a structure on it.
You're right, structures.
Can you put a road through it?
It's as long, you road getting through one part to the other, but I think what we normally limit is development that really disturbs the land in a large degree. Utilities, structures are the main things we try to work with.
Which doesn't make sense with what you just said. If you're in a development that's got a ridge top that's not protected, and you've got house, and all their green space is way down there in the bottom, you've still disturbed that slope.
Yeah,
that's contradictory, really, but to your point.
Yeah, I think that so you can still. You can still build. I think where we get to the non-buildable areas, when we talk about that, that's really a tool that we use as much like a conservation easement. But we found that conservation easements have very specific state definition that some of these folks wouldn't fall into. So we provided a carve out that's kind of a conservation easement, but it's not going to be managed by anybody other than the property owner himself. But in a general development, certainly, you can look at how. If you want to cluster the housing, or if there might be some housing on the ridgeline, you're still going to go through the slope to develop the road. But I think that when folks, I always caution people about this idea of the protected ridgeline, because the ridgeline, neither one of the two ridge ordinances say you can't build on a ridge. It just has development guidelines. It has regulations about how you build on the ridge, and the main part of that is with our local protected ridges would be that you can't have the top of your structure 20 feet from the highest point of the ridge. So if you follow the ridge, but you may chase that ridge back quite a way. So you might see some development in ridges in Jackson County. I think as probably Commissioner Jennings and maybe Commissioner Letson also know, it takes a lot. Building a road up to those ridges is sometimes an impediment for why you don't see as many structures built up there, today. But it doesn't prohibit that outright. There's just some rules associated with them. And then planning boards and councils, we support quite a few. Obviously, municipalities, we support Town of Silva, Webster, Dillsboro, and Forest Hills. The county, we staff the county planning board, Cashiers, Foley, and 441 community planning councils, the Historic Preservation Commission, and of course the board. And really, the planning council is, as we saw even here tonight, they review text amendments to ordinances, they review zoning changes, requests. There's conditional and special use permits that they have the authority to decide on. That the ordinances that you guys approve give them some authority to make some decisions on cases. and they do hear variances. If they disagree with my determination on an ordinance, planning councils in those areas would be the body that would hear those appeals, and then they work as the also have some watershed responsibilities. The planning board does much the same thing at a much bigger level for the entirety of the county. So they adopt plans, or they recommend plans and policies to this body for consideration, and they perform any other related duties that you may request. Historic Preservation Commission. This is a joint commission between all four jurisdictions and the county, municipalities, and our goal is to try to preserve the physical history of the county, so structures, places, sites, and we do that through a local designation. We have 3 locally designated buildings.
Make it in time for the old train depot.
Yeah, we do miss out on some inevitably. But part of what we do is the education of the history of Jackson County. Part of it is working with our partners like the Appalachian Women's Museum, the Castros Historic Society, the Genealogical Society, to not only preserve history but to document it. Our staff has worked with Western Carolina University when they've removed historic buildings, or when buildings have to be done to document them, to preserve those documentations. Some of the work we're doing today, this month is actually Historic Preservation Month, and the Historic Preservation Commission is working. Hopefully you've seen it. If not, we'll get you that information. We're having a school art contest, a poster contest for school children. So anybody that's in school in Jackson County can participate, and we'll be doing that until May 20th. And we're also, modernizing because the state statutes have changed. We're updating. You'll see us with an updated historic preservation ordinance. We've been working with John Kubis on that, getting that to meet those standards. And you can also find some information about Bill Davis, our public information officer, been doing some videos around the county with our historic preservation folks, and they're pretty good. I hope you get to see some of those as well. But this is the Historic Places Art Contest that's going on until May 20th, and there's a QR code, and you can find a whole bunch of great information about historic preservation there.
Judges.
The Historic Preservation Commission is finalizing the judges, so as soon as we get those, we'll let you know. If you want to visit Linktree at Jackson County HPC, that has all of our historic resource information in our art contest, and it also has all the videos that we've been working on. So we also have a story map, which is a map that tells you about all the historic buildings on Western's old campus, or older section of the campus, and then. Anna Harkins, who was our planner one a while back, had some skill sets, and she was able to develop for us a bunch of coloring pages of our historic buildings. So on that site, you'll find the Rock Schoolhouse, you'll find the Hooper House, you'll find the courthouse, and a couple of other different. The Jarrett House, I think, is also up there. So we got coloring pages that they can download and use and have fun with. Regular meeting dates, this is changes a little bit. The Cully Planning Council is usually the first Monday of the month. The Historic Preservation Commission is usually the third Tuesday of the month. The Cashers Planning Council is the fourth Monday of the month. Jackson County Planning Board is the fourth Thursday of the month. And the the 441 Gateway Corridor meets when necessary. At this point, we don't have a regular meeting date for them right now. And how you keep in touch with us? Well, you can go to the Jackson County Planning Department. We have project and updates tab. That tells you all the work that we're doing, and you can find out all the latest information. Of course, you can also contact planning staff. We're happy to talk with you about the work that's being done for us. And we're also on Facebook. So the planning department has a Facebook page that we have all of our agendas get posted to that usually a week before the meeting, and you can find out further information. And then the Historic Preservation Commission also has a Facebook page where we talk about historic preservation in Jackson County. And that's my presentation tonight, and I appreciate your time.
CB already left with the timer.
Well, good. Man. No.
You did a good job.
Well, he had
Thank
to take a walk because he's about to fall asleep.
Well, I'll try to pep it up next time.
Yeah, you did a
More
good
stories, more Alice in Wonderland for you guys.
You guys do a good job
Thank you.
helping on certain plats and stuff.
Yeah.
People figuring out what they can do,
Yeah.
and what they can't do. You do a real good job.
Well, we appreciate that, and that our goal is we're here to help people, so that's what we want to do, and that's what we try to do.
And that it shows.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Thank you guys very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Post. Next up, we have Mr. King and policy and procedures for appointments. Something that I think some of the other people could have stayed. This is what we're trying to make it easier for them.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, we like these 2 pages here.
Yeah.
this kind of lays out the framework that y'all have been looking at as far as the appointment process, kind of what procedurally, how we go about or y'all go about appointing, and it realigns a lot of the different appointees to 2 times a year in June and December, and that way we can kind of advertise a couple months before in the paper, on our Facebook page, on the website, to try to get as many people that's interested in serving on as possible. It also kind of lays out, if you choose to do an interview process, you can, and it kind of lays out that as well. So anything, we can read through it, or I think y'all have looked at
I
it.
think to avoid confusion with the public, because they seem to be confused in how this whole process works, that we should have an interview process, or at least they need to come before the board and explain to the board what they're bringing to the appointment that they're seeking.
Okay.
Agreed.
How many boards do we have? I mean, how many we're talking about?
I would speculate 20 or more.
So are we going to try, is this going to add a meeting on for us, or is this going to be
I think
during the budget cycle? Or?
Well, I think that this could probably be done by Zoom. I don't know, Mr. Cubis. That way, we're not having to come down here and.
I want to see them face to face. I want to talk to them face to face.
I'm sorry, Mark, Chairman, could you repeat that? I wasn't picking you up good.
No, I'm trying to, we've got 20 boards with anywhere from 5 to 15 people on each board that are gonna come, twice a year, the 30th and the 31st, for either reappointment or a new person. And trying to navigate all of those people on 2 dates, or maybe a couple of extras, maybe 2 meetings per month, before we make a vote. I was just wondering if we could convene in a Zoom environment if we needed to, for just talking to those individuals.
Yeah, I think that'd be absolutely acceptable.
Just for the sheer amount of people. I mean, we have, appointments every month almost, and it just seems if we're going to condense that to 2 times a year, we need to have alternatives.
So the interview would be Zoom. Well, now, would that be official open meeting?
Yes. You have to go to Zoom.
Well, I mean, if there's a quorum of folks who are having to decide on that, then yeah, it would be an open meeting.
So we can have an open meeting on Zoom?
So long as the core group of commissioners, as long as the quorum of folks are there in person, the person that you're deciding on admitting, however, they can attend remotely, but you would need a quorum of the commissioners there.
Okay.
Well,
In person.
Yeah, we wouldn't be voting on the same day that we're doing the interviews.
We can't.
It would be a different day.
Yeah, we can't all Zoom. No, I don't think that we could do that.
Or maybe replace one of the working sessions.
I think just let them come in and meet with us face to face. I don't like that Zoom stuff.
The only thing I would also caution y'all about is just, as as time has gone on, there seems to be less of volunteerism, and then you're putting another obstacle in front of people or another hurdle that they're trying to, if they want to participate in, civic activities, it's going to be just another challenge for them to come in and kind of be, and a lot of people are not going to understand they're going to, it's kind of like another, so another hurdle. So that's why we kind of left it where it's up to each individual, I guess. So some boards are, yeah.
But if they're gonna do their civic duty to volunteer, to be on the board, then they ought to be able to come in here and talk to us.
I'm just saying some boards, like Home and Community Care Block Grant Board, you barely get enough people to even apply. So,
I've been on the naming board for 2.5 years. I called a meeting, so.
Here's one that's Cashier's board, Cashier Small Area Board, you have to have business inside the regulated district or house. So you're reducing all of District 4 down to that. And I can tell you firsthand, I know about 4 of those people that are like, I don't want to get on this thing anymore just because of the amount of headaches. I mean, the public hearings, the quasi-judicial hearings that lasted for months really have just said, maybe we don't need to have this anymore, or we've got to expand the area just to fill those seats.
Well, I like the wording that Kevin put in it, but just says we can have we can request them to come speak. Is that right? Pretty much.
I like that too.
Yeah,
I mean that'll be fine.
We don't have to, if it's some, like you say, some board that nobody, it's just the same old people, like the cemetery board, and like John said, the road naming board, it's. But when you have multiple applicants for one board, yes, I want to be sitting here and for those folks to come before us and speak.
Things like library, the boards that people really want to be on.
Yeah.
And also, God, I forgot it. It's gone. No.
I like
the
it. Way you.
I know what I was saying. Having a submittal time also gives us and Angie time to get us information, like their phone numbers, so we can reach out to them and just, it's kind of our duty to the citizens to vet these people prior to. So,
on the terms, is that going to extend some terms or is that going to shorten terms?
it depends on how each board was established, so it's going to have to go back to kind of its roots. But then, they're going to have to either change, or we may have to change some resolutions when you established them to switch it up to where it's. Most of them have been, I think, June 30th on a lot of them, but there's some that are sporadic. Those are the ones that we're going to have to work on, which right now we're still kind of developing an approach. We may not get it done in the next 12 months, but we'll try to do it as best we can.
and even some of them have, I think a TDA is a prime example, where they have to have a quorum. We may have to see them earlier if someone drops out. Like if they lose a seat and they're not getting a quorum. So,
Speaking of that, how do we pick, who picks the new place for Julie? Chamber of Commerce.
That's a separate entity, so we have nothing to do with that.
Who picks that?
It's the chamber board. It's like a merchants association, basically.
I like this. I say we move it to the next week.
gives us some movement in how we operate, but some defined lines for.
And transparency. People want to know.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. We just need everybody to know how it works and when it works. So.
And if you don't get your name in, so be it. You had this amount of time to get it in. You've got 2 dates to get it in. So.
We need in order to give us time to review the applications or call and contact these people, should it be before, 30 days prior to the expiration, so like May 30th and November 30th, They have to
For
have
the
their,
application?
yeah, they have to have their applications in.
I think a month is a good time frame.
Well, this is when their terms will expire, so.
Right,
if-
but-
If we do it on May 30th, we can vote the second
Right, that's what I'm saying,
second meeting in June,
which is prior to the,
prior to the
because
expiration.
if we tell them applications are due by June 30th, then we don't have time to
Gives
talk
us
to them.
what, 2-3 weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we,
They'll give us 30 days, at least 30 days, sometimes 31.
I like it. Is there a consensus on it?
Yeah, I think we can leave it to.
I think that makes the process a whole lot easier.
Definitely.
Not only for us, but for everybody else.
Yeah. All right.
We won't get yelled at so much. We're spending 2 hours in a meeting.
It's 2 hours in a meet. All right, moving on to Cashers Water and Sewer.
So Mark and I had conversations about the Cashers Water and kind of how that is needing at least a study done. And then, so we got a proposal from the Civil Design Concepts for $100,000 for the water part. But I also added in the sewer because of the horse pasture issue and trying to look at creative ways to get that project developed. And we kind of need to know where we're at and kind of a third party. So that was 42,000. So the total for the study is 142,000. And just didn't know kind of the moving forward, we can bring the proposal, but it would take budget amendment and trying to get that going. If right now it's kind of like all over the place, and you can speak more about it too. But did talk to Buddy, who works for CDC and is also up there, and so there is technical resources already available, but he is working for CDC.
He's probably one of the more knowledgeable of everything in that area because he's.
Yeah, and I think he worked for Diener for 30 years, so he knows his stuff.
Decades of knowledge of aquifer and Cashers and Southern Jackson County. So I think there's got to be a plan in place, and this is the first step in that. Hopefully.
What I've been told, I don't know, is like Tuwassa don't want to take on the responsibility for all the water and sewer up there because of the amount of money it would take, and it can't pay itself back within a certain amount of years. Is that right?
Not necessarily. If you're talking about the High Hampton, system, that is a non-traditional system. I mean, it's actually not non-traditional. It's new traditional. It's a different concept, and so they're just not. They can't manage that, and so that's kind of why they bypassed on that particular system. So they've been going after, of course, the Horse Pasture River, which they have a discharge permit that's going to sunset, I think, this year. And so, because the cost was just so high, 35 million.
5 million.
And so they've been trying to develop kind of an outside of the box approach to maybe expand the current system, but then pump the discharge over to the horse pasture to discharge, which is kind of a hybrid system. That is not, there's not really any good feedback from the state at this point, but that's their latest, just to mitigate cost. I mean, if you have a current system, you can add another tank on the current site. It's a lot less than having to build a bridge and doing all the things you got to do over at horse pasture. So that's kind of the deal. So we've been trying to work with them. Other than saying here's $35 million, there's not really much we can do except the planning, and I think that's what.
But if you want to build it for them, they'll come in and reap the benefits afterwards.
Oh yeah,
and some of it is their bylaws too. The debt repayment.
It is debt repayment. Yeah.
On that is what kind of hampers them.
And it's an enterprise fund, at the end of the day, and enterprise funds have to, you have to cover your costs, and that's where, the state can come in and say, well, here, your costs have to be here if your operational's here. I mean, it's got to break even. So,
It would, I mean, for the people it would serve, it would be astronomical.
yeah. And then that's the problem. So, because I think the initial estimate was around 7.5 million, which is doable.
Pre-COVID.
Yeah,
And then we got estimates back. I think it was
12 or 14.
12,
I believe.
14, and then it went out to bid, and it got to like 27.
Yeah.
And now it's at 35. USDA
Pulled out.
Yeah, they basically said we're not going to do this project.
Since COVID, it went up that high?
Yep.
I mean,
Under
what's the reason for
USDA
that?
rules, it has to be made in America. So the people that come to do that plant and build it the way USDA wants are few and far between. So you're
Maybe some of us need to go in that business.
And then we also worked on if we can identify the players, there might be some possibility of some collaboration. And the problem is you're using the same infrastructure, you're using parts of infrastructure here, and you might need to go this way, and you might have to use part of Tomasa's infrastructure to get there, and then it's so we just need to know what's in the ground now, and that's what this study's going to do. And so hopefully it'll identify partnerships that can be developed from different utilities.
Yeah, there are a lot of close, I mean, hundreds of feet away from making a full system, and it's that little bit that we need to know.
So they don't have a major plan of what they did or a mapping?
Twassa does, but then you got Carolina Water who's done some stuff, and it's kind of like, and then you got, we operate at two wells, which we gave to Twassa to manage, which has about, I think, 80 people, 80 different connections. And then you got all this other stuff about, the buying capacity. People have bought capacity throughout the years. And that factors into the whole thing too. So it's
our department owns a lot of capacity.
Yeah.
And I mean,
So if we own those two wells that we gave Twassa to manage, do we get any money off of it? We do? What would that be?
It's not a lot. They own, there's about 15 customers on there, right?
We're the
Everybody's
biggest.
getting screwed.
We're the biggest
Yeah.
for our facilities, right?
Yeah.
Must be a big well. 15 are hooked onto the well.
Yeah, I think there's 80 that have rights to it. So
I'd like to have that well at my house.
No kidding. But there's a lot of wells up there that have that kind of capacity that are, all they're missing is a sleeve in the ground. Big enough to pull it. So.
They drilled a well, didn't even need a pump. They just capped it. Got plenty of water pressure without a pump. Some people are lucky.
Good man.
That's good.
Yeah.
Is there consensus to move that to the next one? Do we need Buddy to come and present, or is he gonna?
I've got the proposal from CDC, or Patrick Bradshaw is the principal there. So whatever the pleasure of the board is.
Consensus to start this process?
Find out more information.
It's going to hit a lot of people in that core that don't have water. So. Okay. Moving on to our Fontana Regional Library Board discussion, or just regional library discussion.
I don't know about the rest of these guys, but I continue to get hounded by people about, the stuff that, they're displaying in the libraries. One of the big ones was the OTC stuff. I know that's been cleared up. But people have went to the board meetings and they're kind of seem to be pushed to the side. They're not being, listened to really. And we put some good people on the FRL board from our side, but the board itself doesn't seem to be changing direction. They're continuing down the promoting.
They're beating the
ideology.
same horse to death.
Yeah, they're promoting the same ideology that's most people in this county reject. And
over and over.
Yeah.
All
It's
the time.
ridiculous. It's really ridiculous.
I think even Chairman Letson had a talk with the director, and nothing seems to be changing.
I think we need to change the leadership.
What can we do about this?
Change the leadership.
I mean, you have, John, you can chime in anytime, but the two most direct is you have board appointments, you have appropriation, and then the third option would be, you can exercise your rights under the agreement. And those are the three options you got.
The fourth option would be close the library.
No, we wouldn't do that. That's not an option.
Guess that's your option.
I don't know. I really think Jackson County could probably provide just a good library system on our own outside of the FRL. But that's my opinion, and
I feel like we went through the Fontana Regional Library Agreement as best as we could.
well, we were
And-
hampered, I think, by
Well-
North Carolina's administrative law.
Right.
We couldn't get some of the things that we wanted, but
Could we give them could we tell them something needs to change or else we're getting out? I mean, is that something we could do?
I mean, I think that's if that's the pleasure of the board, that's where we go. I think we need to have that discussion with some of the other counties as well, just to say, listen, we're coming to a point now where we've reached out, we've tried to change some of the things that we're seeing, but it's not really happening. And I mean, I don't get on Facebook or anything like that, so I don't really ever see anything. I know for Cashier's Library, it is a little bit it's left leaning, but
It's very left wing. It's not a little bit. It's very left wing, and it needs to go.
But I don't know if changing the library is going to change any of that.
I don't care. We don't want to see it. We don't want to. Our kids don't want it. The community don't. The majority of the people in Jackson County do not want to see that crap in there.
Agreed. From what I hear, I haven't
heard anything good about.
I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And the whole library's being misrun, mishandled. They let homeless in there. They lie about them dyeing their hair. That wasn't a teenager. There's people in there that dye their hair. It's multiple sinks. It wasn't one sink. And they weren't dyeing Easter eggs. And I mean, as far as the handgun, people can laugh about it and say it was, what was it? What was it? What kind of gun was it? It wasn't real, but it was
It was an airsoft.
Yeah, airsoft. That still put your eyes out. I mean, and if you're in there and you're working at night or no matter where you are and somebody waves a gun around at you, I mean, I'm not going to go over and inspect it to see if it's real. I just don't think we're putting our people in our county in a bad place, and it's not what the people in the county want, and I don't know why we have to put up with it.
It seems like they're really promoting certain agendas, like
They
a
are.
lot.
Well, all I'm gonna say on the subject is that county dollars should not promote anything. It should be 100% neutral. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Anything that the county funds should be 100% neutral. No matter what, if we're Republicans sitting up here or if we're Democrats sitting up here, every funded organization or department, whatever that may be, those tax dollars comes from various different people throughout the county, not just one side or the other. All I'm going to say is every department, every organization funded solely, and I know this is a little different because it's funded, the FRL is funded by 3 counties, but we set aside how much, Ms. Fox? Over $1 million. And
per year?
They should remain, every organization, every department should remain neutral. And that's all I'm going to say. No matter where you stand, Whether,
That's right.
no matter where you stand.
You ought to be able to go in the library and not have to be appalled by anything that's there. What,
Exactly.
no matter which side you're on.
They put
Exactly.
their displays right there in the front door when you walk in. Nobody gets past it without looking at it.
Like I've said before, it don't matter if there's 5 Democrats sitting up here, 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans. Every department, every agency, every organization, again, should remain neutral. Because these tax dollars, again, they come from everyone in Jackson County. So, and that's all I'm gonna say.
Well, that's not happening.
Oh, yeah, I know.
So that's what we need to happen, or something needs to change, is my feeling.
Well, that's kind of why we went into the.
And I had high hopes of the, the
Yeah.
FRL agreement, and I'm still hopeful. I'm still hopeful because we had, I think, Mr. Cubis and maybe Deborah Bechtel working on it for several months to get to maybe even close to a year, maybe over a year, to get to a good agreement. So
We spent a lot of money getting that agreement, and
that's why
we thought that would change direction. And actually, one of our appointments is Ms. Smith back here. She's sitting back here tonight.
I guess my question is this: so our problem is that what we're seeing is we need some better direction from the FRL board in terms of how their communication with Tracy is
I see that
following down the line.
Yeah, I see that as a barrier because at least one of the other counties, they don't care. They're a small county. They can't afford a library by themselves. So if other counties get out, then they're left and not being able to fund their own library. I understand that. It's tough. Tough decision. I've had conversations with a couple of commissioners from the other county, and one of them wants to get out, and one of them says they got enough problems of their own without getting out yet. So I don't know what their board would do. The one that wants to get out, he feels that if another county, whether it be us or the other county, got out, then they would follow. I don't know if that's the right answer, but if we can't change direction, then I don't think they're leaving us much choice.
I think they need to be told straight that's their options, is make it neutral or we're out.
I hate it has come to that. I don't want to ban any books. Everybody's got the right to read whatever they want to read, whenever they want to read it. But don't throw everything in everybody's face. If you're going to throw, this agenda in somebody's face, then you better be throwing the opposite side in their face as well. You got to have neutral or equal representation.
And I did see posts. Someone sent me some posts. Easter, I think they had some Easter stuff. So I mean, they're trying. I think they need to. Should work a little bit harder for that. So
How about if we do this? How about if Kevin explores some options about us leaving and bring it to the next meeting, and we can discuss it.
In terms of the options, I mean, they're pretty. When we went through, getting the revised agreement together, I mean, the pathway is there. It's just a matter of what the will of the board is.
Right, because we put in the conditions that we get to keep most of the things within the library, so that wouldn't be a big hindrance to getting out. And,
but then what's the? I mean.
Well, I guess I've never heard any of those, but I mean, why don't we, if we know them, why don't we put them together and we can bring them, we can look at them at the next meeting? Or maybe send them to us in an email and let us look over them, we can have a discussion.
Well, I think that all the time we've spent and money we've spent on the agreement, what Commissioner Jennings said, give them the option, gotta go neutral or we're out.
I mean, they've had 6 months change course and do what's right, what the community has asked them to do.
Right.
And they continue down the confrontational path.
No tax dollars should be spent to promote anything.
I agree 100%, whether it's religion
Right.
or anything else.
There's no reason that our property, the library on it, we can't control what's in it because Fontana's in control. That's not.
We can make those lease changes if we needed to at the end of their lease.
Does that expire? End of
26, I believe, yeah, end of 2026.
It seems like there's one person that's judge, jury, and executioner over what goes out. Is what it seems like, and nobody else in the county has any say about it besides one person.
Right.
And
3 counties.
3 counties. So that one person needs to be neutral, or I'll go on record saying I want out if they don't.
Yeah, I agree.
If they don't, if they don't change their direction, then yeah. I'm for good one.
Well, are we putting a deadline on it, or what are we doing?
If we're gonna do it, we have to do it before June 30th, because that's the deadline to get out, and then we still have to wait a year.
Let's move on with it.
We've got a very small window of time.
Yeah.
Well,
Let's do it by June 30th. Well, I say.
We're not giving them any kind of 30 days to
They had to.
make some changes.
They've had since December. They knew we had a whole, several hour meeting there with the other county boards and the FRL director and their lawyer. They knew what we wanted, and they continue to go a different direction.
Right. And we have tried.
And we have tried to coax them in a different direction, and they continue. I mean, there for a while, they even cut off public comment in their meetings. You could submit them in writing and they would read them, but you couldn't even make public comments at their meetings. I mean, and then if you challenge a book, you can only challenge one book per meeting.
Oh.
And they only meet, 4 times a year? So you can challenge 4 books in a year.
That's
Is that correct, Deborah?
I'm not sure about the challenges.
I don't want to drag you into this discussion.
That's okay. May I offer one thing that may be helpful? Macon County is in the process of deciding who they're going to appoint to the board because there was a resignation.
Right, they just appointed Bill McGaha.
Right, and they've got another appointment to make.
Yeah.
If that appointment goes in the direction in which the last appointment did, I think that you will see that the board will then have the votes to make some of the changes that I think are going to make a lot of people happier.
Well, that would be the best situation, but so far that's not what I'm seeing, not what the public's
But
seeing.
it's very hard to do anything when you don't have votes.
Yeah,
on the
it
board.
is.
And it's a 9-person board, so.
Yeah.
And if we've only got till June 30th?
Yeah, I'll call one of the Macon County Commissioners and see when they're going to do that, because I think they only meet once a month, don't they?
John, I guess the question would be if the board decided to pull out and gave notice to FRL, with their intent, so we would have a year to wait, basically.
We could jump back in.
Could you jump back in if things changed?
So I'd have to go back to the agreement. I don't think that my recollection is that there's nothing in the agreement that would prevent us from changing our mind within that period. And the whole unwinding process, is a little bit messy just because of the different ownership of different things between, FRL and individual county libraries and so on and so forth. So there's a lot to do with that, but I'm not aware of anything off the top of my head of anything that would prevent us from changing our mind.
You know, the way I read the North Carolina Administrative Code, and I'm not a lawyer, obviously, that's kind of what that 1 year waiting period was for. It's kind of a cooling off period, so everybody could calm down and come to a different agreement.
So what I've heard is that you want me to get like what if scenarios, basically. So we'll get that for the.
I hate it, but
Okay.
What, why couldn't somebody just straight up give them, I hate to call it an ultimatum, but.
well, we really have no power to give them an ultimatum other than saying we're leaving.
I think y'all kind of have done right now because they want to, or we'll get the recording.
Oh,
So
I'm sure they'll listen.
So I think you kind of already have. Yeah.
That's all right, I mean.
I don't care. That's what I'm up here for. I mean, I'm here to serve the citizens of Jackson County and what they want, and by and large, they're not happy with what's going on.
It's consensus then. Information.
I have other business if anybody wants to. Sure. Well, this is regarding waste management. Plus, I had other business. Sorry, I'm being a pain in everybody's butt. So I talked to a couple of the people that work at the different facilities, particularly the one in Dillsboro and the one in Savannah.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to you about one of the issues, and that was resolved. But this is some of the workers and some of the citizens, especially in the Savannah area, they see a lot of cars with Georgia tags and other things stopping there and dumping off their trash.
Mm-hmm.
And I know at least one of the counties around here, when you renew your tag, as part of paying your car taxes, they give you a little sticker to put on your window. And if you don't got the sticker, you don't dump your trash in that county's waste management. Would that be something hard to implement? Would that save us any money?
That wouldn't. It's just, one, the enforcement piece, and two, what about all the tourists that are in your county? How are you going to save?
Yeah.
It's subjective
That
on.
would be hard,
there,
because
so.
That's what I told them. I was like, that'd be hard.
You could be taking the trash off from an Airbnb or anything like
Yeah.
that.
We have people in
And
Georgia
plus,
that pay
you're gonna
taxes
have
down there.
people dumping trash
and
over the
property
side of the
here, so
bank.
they're still-
Right.
Yeah.
So.
That's my answer. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was easy.
Now that it's 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to make sure the answer was right.
No, I didn't mean that for you. I just meant it's 10 o'clock. Are y'all ready to go home? You got any more business?
I don't.
No. No, I thought you said you had 2 things.
No, I just said one.
Oh, okay.
Well, I had to, but Chad, I talked to earlier today, and he
Okay.
answered one of them for me. So.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second that motion. All in favor?
Who has something?
Not me. Sorry.